Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe. Hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a Ko-Fi, Patreon, crypto, and thanks button in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patreons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So, a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Chris Wouters, Omar Shertha, Naughty Thumbnails, Mitch Kennedy, Rod, the name's Burley, Todd Wazzle, Jason Hornsby, Christoph Fournier, Flat Earth Travolta, JMels24, Unimento, M, Iron26, Eric Troche, Endless, Goldie McKiernan, Retro Bill, Level Plain Poem, Canna Bear, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Mel B Styles, Hairy Blade, Mobile Max 777, Rob W, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Abraham Mohammed, Skeptic 936, Life is Short, Texas Mike, David Wayne Foster, and Dank. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I'll hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
Back and forth, like, I don't get it. Like, do you think he actually learned? Do you think he actually accepted what you told him?
Well, that's on him, right?
Yeah.
All I can do is just teach and try to make it as clear as possible, and then he's got the choice at the end of the day.
Yeah.
They can either bunker down and stay where they are, or they can get pulled out of there and go, hey, wait a second, maybe.
Well,
You know?
we'll see what happens today, dude. Because yesterday was a mess. As soon as Nathan left, he came back. He came back to the voice chat and he started his bullshit, started talking over people, and it was a mess.
this?
Telling him
Who's
he was gonna.
Who are you talking about?
Oh, good morning, guys. Oh shit, you here? We're talking about the dude that was in the voice chat yesterday that claimed he was in the library. So as soon as you guys left, as soon as you left, Nathan, as soon as you signed off, he came back into the voice chat. He unmuted himself, and the show started, man.
But that's when you should just ignore him. That's when you should say you had your chance to speak. Come on a live show. If not, take a walk. But that's totally up to you guys.
No, that wasn't the bit I was interested in. I was more interested in what I heard. Sounded like he delivered the same usual MO that they all deliver, which is rumpusing, causing disruption, ignoring points that are put to him. If he's going to be that guy, he's not going to be welcome on the show. The moment he does it, he's
exactly. You would not, Nathan. You would not tolerate him for 10 seconds. That's that type of guy.
Right.
The arrogance in his voice and like the talking over, not trying to listen to anyone, just talking over people, telling people he's going to mute them. Because, that type of shit. He wouldn't last like 1 minute with you.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
And he knew that. He knew that. That's why he didn't want to get unmuted while you were here. That's why he was in the library.
Of course.
If you believe that. Goes to the library to put himself in the VC room.
These people are seeking their own affirmation bias here. And by being able to talk through anybody who puts a point that he's heard over and over again on the show, without letting it come through to him personally, he thinks he's getting a win. Or he's here literally just to piss everybody off, just to intentionally wind everybody up.
Yep, the last one. In my opinion, the last one.
Yeah, but Nathan, how long? See, I don't get that. Because at the end, you're only lying to yourself. How do you get... I don't understand that.
Well, again, if he doesn't care about that, if he see it only to rile, like people here up and like to make people upset and cause the rumpus, that's his goal is achieved. He's the angriest glober I've ever heard. Like he was triggered, man.
Yeah, well, wouldn't you be angry if everything you believed in was taken away and no way to get it back?
Not true. I got called in, I came in, and everything got back.
What do you mean?
Righteous
that
make
means,
peace, I guess. I don't know, man.
That means I came in and the room got calm real quick. And we were able to have like just a normal chit chat.
Oh, okay. And what was the what was the end result of the normal chit chat?
You, my great minds. What was achieved?
That was
Well, we
my
were just
question,
talking
too.
about the horizon, and we just had a chat about that, and we just whittled it down, and just I explained my position, and then he explained what he thought, and yeah, we just kind of went down that road a little bit. But then I had to rush out. I had to attend to something else afterwards. But I was just able to chat with him. That's what I'm saying.
He was using the word geometric horizon so much, and I just asked him to define it, and he said, "It's the horizon you would see if you weren't accounting for refraction." So it's the horizon that you don't see. That's the geometric horizon, dude.
Basically, what I got to down was a video 10th man showed me. Right, he showed me a video about an artist defining the horizon. And the way this artist defined the horizon is basically always the center of your eyesight, right? And it's always horizontal. Like if you're in art, you'll see there's converging lines as it goes like towards the horizon, right? Towards the horizontal.
Linear
You
perspective.
see anything above the horizontal and below the horizontal ends up being converging or diverging lines. But as soon as it's at horizontal, it's always left to right. And that is always going to be at the center of your eyes no matter what. Because it's the horizon or the horizontal is purely based on your eye. And that's what I was trying to explain to him.
Yeah, it's literally the first lesson in every art class.
And the other thing I try to explain to him is like, hey, look, if we have a floor and we have a ceiling and we say the floor is brown and the ceiling is blue, eventually they'll like appear to meet, even though they're not meeting. So I kind of just try to explain just stuff like that. Really, I wasn't really like debating or arguing with him. I was just having a chit chat with him, I guess you could say.
I just tell him the horizon is not Earth curve. It's an impossibility on a ball.
Well, I got to the point where I was like, what would be the difference between a plane, horizon on a plane and a horizon on a ball, right? I forgot if he ever gave me the answer to that, right? Because they're assuming,
He
right? They're
can't.
making that assumption that there's a difference.
No, he can't even make that assumption because there are no horizons on a sphere. Horizontal sphere does not work. Slope-a-dope.
We all down? We're going to 24/7 today.
Oh yeah, I heard about that. You guys wanted to go there.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
Mighty, you want to go arrange it with those guys and announce that Nathan wants to do a show there? And then,
Sure. Let me see if anybody's there first.
Thank you very, very much. Because you doing that makes me not a rude, just whatever the term would be, someone who just turns up. I mean, with time, I think that will be the case with various servers like 24/7 or the Land of Misfit Toys. They'll become familiar with us.
There's nobody there right now.
We just pile in there. And
I
then
think
people will join us from that server if we just join a room there. What do you reckon?
Absolutely.
What's their logo?
The radio bot. I'll send you Righteous, can you send an invite? I'm on the phone. I can do it, but it's going to take me a minute. They have a FE radio bot over there playing right now, but I think once somebody comes in, you can turn it off.
what was I going to say? I don't have. I gotta fetch the link. I gotta look for it. I think it's in like the
I'll go. Hold on 1 second. I just got
invite link section. But Nathan, you got the server on your thing. I'm just gonna show you how to navigate to the Discord server. How about that?
I'll send the invite. Just give me a sec.
All right.
Found it. So if I click on it, it'll take me. I'll still be in this room until I join a different room. Which room in 24/7 are we going to? The name of the room.
I'm guessing like live stream 1 or 2 or something like that.
Live stream 1
Is
or 2.
that how it goes, Mighty? Wait till Mighty comes back. He's the familiar with 247. I haven't been there for a while. And yeah, you just click on the voice room. Obviously, just like you do it here.
Sure.
But just wait for Mighty to come back, and we'll go from there. Okay.
Okay. He's in one of the live stream rooms, right? I'm gonna go and join him. He's in live stream something.
All right. Yeah, that sounds good. All right.
See you over there.
At Artesta Lodge number 29 in New Mexico. James Irwin of Apollo 15,
Oh, no.
the last man
how
to
do I
lie
mute-
about
how
walking
do I
on the
mute
moon,
him?
was a Tihan Lodge number 10.
Okay, I've muted to the radio bot. Hopefully someone will turn it off.
Yeah, hold on 1 second. I gotta see if I can mute the bot.
I've muted him locally, so my audience doesn't
Right,
get...
but I want to see if I can mute him completely, like
Yeah,
for
yeah.
everybody. Turn on.
Otherwise, everyone will join and it'll be audio chaos with debate talking and us debating because they don't know to mute him.
Yeah, I can only mute him too, also, and just locally.
Hmm.
Let's see.
Mute soundboard. Should just leave him on mute and tell...
Yeah, it doesn't appear that I can turn it off. I
To a
can only
different
mute
room. What about going in the arena? Like Earth 24/7
it. Okay.
arena? Should we go in there?
Yeah,
Let's go in there.
let's try.
Masonry. The amount of
Yeah, that's better. Okay. Well, people
We're
will
going
see
now.
us.
We're gonna.
How do we move the people from live stream? I suppose they might want to be in there to listen to debate, so better not move them. Right, well,
No,
we're
man.
here. We're here. What do we want? Let's get rid of this. Join now. FE Rumble. No. We're having our own party in this room. And it's called the arena. Why not?
Yeah.
It's as good as room in any. It's
I
like
don't understand. How come these guys don't see that we're down here?
what I think of these servers, right, is it's like what I used to call a DOS house. Do you know what a DOS house is?
No.
Like a house that somebody would own, that they'd kind of leave the door open and people would just kind of come and go of their own volition. You know what I
Right.
mean? No one's got an invite in, but they're coming and going as they choose. So that's like this. It's like, well, we're going to set up shop in this room. I don't know whose house it is. I mean, we do. We know whose house it is, sort of, don't we?
Yeah.
It's 24/7, right? We've known here. Gate crashers. There's other parties going on in other rooms and we don't care. We're picking this room. We're setting up the DJ decks. We're getting the lights out. What do you want?
Got the decorations. Yeah.
Yeah. We've got
Well-
the booze. We've got the room. We're all sorted. Who are you? Yeah, you can come in. We don't care. The door's open. The house was open.
Mighty much this channel live stream too. No about play. Viking is saying live stream too. So Nathan, just drop down one more room maybe. See the live stream too, right underneath.
Sure. The arena sounds better, but we'll do that. I'll drop down now. Live stream 2. That sounds much worse than the arena. The arena had some cool edge to the door tile. I mean, it's not like these are arbitrary or anything.
I'm gonna go back to our server. Just tell people that we're here, and we'll be right back.
In live stream 2, like studio 2, room 2. We should be in room 1.
What is going on, dude? There's nobody in our server now. Like, where did everybody go?
We announced yesterday that we were going to be in 24/7, so I'm not too concerned. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Build
All
it
right.
and they shall come.
They'll come.
I totally agree.
Yeah, Viking, can you, if you hear me, bro, can you write a text message in our server and leave a link for the live stream too that we hear? And no, I'm gonna reach out to Creation Bear.
This computer's wicked. So it does things that most normal people take for granted. I'll give you an example. After I got back from my eldest daughter's class today, came in, my wife sat where I sit now. She's doing her work on a laptop. And all I did was move the mouse. I'm like, let me know if the computer turns on. Now, the idea is that if it's asleep, you move the mouse and it turns on, right? It's not that complicated. Well, I haven't had that for 16, 17 months till I got this computer replaced with a new one. Now it does it. I move the mouse and the computer comes on. I'm like, wow, this is so cool. It just works. Yeah, nobody's impressed. I am.
It's the way it should be. You should just turn it on and it works.
Well, it does now, so I'm very happy.
There we
No.
go. I'll let these guys know. So,
Oh, you're not like behaving like a nervous host. Like, will they come to the party? Don't worry, Mush. We'll be all
no,
right.
why should I? Yeah.
Listen,
I tagged
Mighty,
Creation Bear. If
I wouldn't
anybody wants to
wasted this
join,
money
and,
on
yeah,
Pringles
that's all.
for no reason.
once they say Nathan and us there, they'll come. That movie, if you built it, they will come.
I'm one of those people.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't care if they don't. More booze for me.
No, you can't feel that way
sometimes small
about having
parties
a
are better,
live
man.
show, Nathan.
We can have an audience regardless. That's something that, as much as it sounds harsh, when I'm like, there's no obligation, right? The audience is built up by me and me alone, isn't it? As much as I praise
Exactly.
the channel, people have come to my channel, and I know I'm going to have an audience. So yeah, all that happens if nobody comes, Neil. So if I'm sat here, there's nobody in Discord, which is how my Mush feels at the moment. It's like, I'm used to having 10 people around me. Where are they all? I'm feeling very uncomfortable.
No, I'm not.
Me, I don't
Personally,
care.
I'm not, bro. Yeah.
I could quite happily. Most people get stage fright. I don't get that. I used to back when I was training as an actor, but you get over it real quick when there's a living to be earned. In this case, it's me on YouTube. And yeah, if there's a little bit more pressure on me because there's no one here, I'll have to monologue for an hour. And I will. I'll just monologue for an hour, no worries.
It's not like you can't do it, right?
Exactly.
Stage fright never affected me. I'm just a natural.
You said it yesterday. Some
I
people are
don't-
more terrified of talking publicly than
Yeah.
death.
I have
Well,
no
that's
fear
what
of
was
talking to anybody,
explained to
but I
me.
just can't talk, bro. Like people come here to listen to you, dude. Like you just got you got the flow. You talk well, like so people come to listen to you. But honestly, like I have no fear talking to anybody. I just can't talk like you. You know what I mean? I'm not as fluent and verbally expressive like yourself, and you're the one man show, dude. I'm here to listen to you, dude.
I just mean anybody. So
And learn and learn.
my wife was on a
From
call
you, Brian, and
getting training,
go ahead.
and during the call,
Mhm.
the person I was just overhearing it, earwigging, and the person has only got colleagues, 6 maybe at most colleagues, and you can hear it in her voice that she's really nervous, and she's even stating it.
Mm.
I was earwigging your training, by the way, and I'm just talking about it on my show. Sorry, but yeah, she's like, if I sound a bit rough and nervous, it's because I'm not used to doing public presentation, or she didn't say public, but presentation. And I'm like,
Mhm.
6 people that are all your colleagues in front of you. How big a deal can it be?
Well, you know what this pastor said to me when I was invited to speak in a church? I guess I was nervous. So he said, listen, just tell your story. Everybody loves a good story. So when I went and they introduced me, I just started telling my story. And I didn't have any fear. There was no anxiety, no nervousness.
Yeah, my daughter's in theater, dude, and like her whole life, she had no anxiety. Like she loved to get on stage, perform. Like she had numerous shows and everything. But now that she's 17, she's getting anxiety before shows and getting really nervous, dude, to the point where she's like, "Oh my gosh!" Like, "Oh my gosh!" I'm like, what the heck happened to you? Like all these years, like you couldn't wait to get on the stage and like be part of the shows and perform and everything. And now, like you've grown up, you have all this experience behind you, and now you're telling me you have anxiety? Like, yeah, I don't know. Like I'm just so nervous. I want to do well. I want the show to go well. I'm like, I know, but like there's nothing you
then
can.
she said the
All you
right
can
That's
do
thing.
is
why
like,
she's thinking
Hold on,
about
hold
it
on.
too much.
No, that's not at all. That is one of the best feelings, right? Tell her this from me. I remember that
Okay.
feeling, the butterflies in your stomach before you go on stage. You don't get that back, right? Tell her that is one of the most wonderful sensations because everything's on high alert. you're not only
Right.
worried about the lines that you're going to deliver, you're worried about the audience, and you're worried about the wider repercussions of if things go badly. In other words, when you get to about 17, suddenly the consequences of you fluffing up a line or something are a lot more prevalent in the front
Yeah.
of your mind. But that feeling of hyper concentration, focus, and what she's calling anxiety, ask her if it feels like she's got butterflies in her stomach, and if she says yes,
Hmm.
say, don't
Right.
forget. It's giving
Yeah.
me goosebumps. She's telling me to tell you to tell her this, right? Because it's one of the most
Yeah, but
amazing
butterflies is
feelings.
different than nervous.
If you can harness that sensation,
Right.
she'll be fantastic. But it's
Right.
not a bad thing, is what I'm trying to say. It's a good thing because it
Right.
means once you said, oh, because she's concerned about X, Y, Z, all relevant things, you're like, good, because you need to be.
Right.
And it means she is. And that's the feeling you get when you've got all of those things going and you've concentrated on all of them and you're aware of them all. Then you get butterflies in your stomach just before you go on. And you're like, this is that feeling, man. You don't get that again. I miss that. It's giving me goosebumps just telling you about some of those times I had that sensation. You don't get it back,
Absolutely.
so tell her to relish it.
I will, Nathan. Thank you for that, brother. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's a little different than nervousness, right? Butterflies is a different thing.
No, it is nervousness, but it's nervousness for the right reason, specifically to people who are about to go
Right.
out in front
Yeah.
of an audience and perform.
I used to get that before football games.
Similar thing,
Like if we were
very similar
playing
thing. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
directly comparable, in fact. Yes. That feeling of butterflies before you go out before an important game, especially if it's professional and there's money on the line, then that is that exact feeling. Yeah, that's very much comparable.
So yeah, then you're right, because you got to harness everything. You're right. You got to know what your assignments are. If they're doing this, you got to know. Yeah, you start thinking about that a lot.
And then you get that wonderful
What?
sensation. And until you know what it is and what it means and what it represents, it just scares you because you're like, I'm just anxious. You're like, that's an oversimplification of what's actually occurring right now in this moment. And like I say, I don't get that anymore. Pressing the live button doesn't give me that sensation. I don't suddenly feel the rush of adrenaline. It just doesn't happen.
Right.
But that's good because obviously I need to come across to my audience as very laid back and comfortable in what I'm doing, and having done it for many years, I am. But she isn't, and like I say, you don't get that back.
Yeah.
You know why, Nathan? When I made my first tackle. So I guess when you deliver your first line and you're good, that goes away and you just flow. Is that the same thing when acting? Or a comedian when he delivers a punchline and he gets a laugh?
The last time I got it was the first few debates. You're venturing into something that you're ignorant in the subject. You know you're there to learn, but yet you're, for me, hosting a debate show. So you're in a disadvantaged position, sort of a bit arrogant to take up that position when you are ignorant, which is how I felt. Well, that kind of nervousness was an acute awareness of how ignorant I was. Now, for your daughter in this particular comparison, she's that way because she's concerned about the right things and has probably learnt her lines, will assume that she's well prepared and blocked herself into the
Right.
stage and knows her movements, etc., etc. Or if it's a dance, she knows her footing, etc. Well, that's different. When you're going into something blind, it's like somebody who's going into a new venture that they are not necessarily 100% sure will succeed. You get the same feeling, but it's an apprehension as opposed to what your daughter described as sort of anxiety. It's like, yeah, you're anxious it'll go well, as opposed to fearful that it might go badly. And in the case of high risk things, unlike well prepared stage performances, you don't necessarily know the outcome. Whereas at least with your daughter,
Right.
she can be focused on what the outcome will be and can visualize it because she's practiced it. Unlike going into something, a venture that's unknown, like me going into debates, I didn't really know what I was doing. I praised JLB actually, because having watched two well-researched, reasonably competent debaters go up against each other with me moderating them, and I did okay. I was like, that gave me the confidence to actually branch into it as a show format. So I praised JLB when he interviewed me and said, well, actually, you were quite an inspiration in that regard. In fact, the inspiration, if I want to be completely blunt about it, because that was how I got exposed to debates in that format for Flat Earth specifically. I thought, no, this is definitely something I could do. But it was scary. Press the live button, nobody's here. And you sat around for 20 minutes, every so often popping up on camera on a live stream that's just running. screenshots of Disney movies, sort of like in the back of a theatre. It's all I could think of when you go to the cinema, and it's got Guess the Movie. So I had a load of slides going up, so when there was silence, there was at least something vaguely interesting to do on screen. And then every so often I'd pop up and go, if you do want to join the show, there's a link below. 20 minutes would elapse, then one guest would join. And the show might be tailing on into 2 or 3 hours just to get 2 or 3 guests talking. Those are that you can imagine why that would be you'd be apprehensive about doing that, because you haven't got anything you can monologue about for an hour. And I didn't. I sat in silence. Go back and listen. Hey, Rayleigh.
So what you're saying? It's a good feeling to have and harness it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it wasn't until I made that first tackle and knocked the snot out of the guy. Then I was good to go. And there was money on the line. It was a $10,000 money league.
Anyway. Hopefully I've scheduled the show correctly today. For whatever reason, I ended
Good morning, Rayleigh.
going on the wrong stream yesterday, and it ended up going out to hardly anybody. So it wasn't because of lack of audience participation. It had just been scheduled from 2 years ago. So it went out on a really old thumbnail. I'm like, wow, how did that happen? Hopefully not the case today. I've checked it.
There's a few people in the live stream one now. Flat Royd, he's a mod. LVA Paul is up there.
And we're knocking around in live stream too. What an outrage.
Yeah, I'm gonna go up there, see what's up with these guys.
I wouldn't worry. Hello, John.
Hello. Are you doing another server today?
Yeah, we're in 24/7 today. There's just no one here, and there's some panic about that, which is amusing in itself.
Yeah. You would think you doing this, maybe you should announce it well ahead of time from now on, so that people that want to come try to take pop shots at you can have time to do so.
I'll announce it at the beginning of the live stream. I did mention it in yesterday's live stream, but as I say, I misscheduled the show somehow. It went out on a really old, scheduled 2 years ago show, or probably even longer based on the thumbnail that it came out with. So that's why we only had 50 or 60 people watching yesterday. But today, it's been scheduled correctly. In fact, it's been scheduled for a day and a half, because it was the one I did schedule but didn't go out on. So there's already people in the chat. So when that does eventually go live in 10 minutes, I'll do an announcement immediately that we're in 24/7. So the link below doesn't necessarily take you there. It takes you to FED. It's a good point. Nobody's in live stream 2 for me to acquire the link to it now. They're all buggered off trying to acquire people from around this server, and it's like, why bother? It's going to be an audience of live participants potentially to join 24/7 once we go live. Who cares?
Yeah, and there's so many people that want to debate this topic that would love to have a pop shot at you outside of your show. I think by broadcasting it maybe a little bit more from now on, or giving it a little bit more time to spread, might be beneficial to these AMAs.
I'll make a bigger deal of it as time goes by. We're only just, literally, so far, we've branched into, I keep calling it the Land of Misfit Toys, and I can't remember the name of the server now. The other server we've been in twice. We've been in
Earth Awakenings.
Earth Awakenings we've been in a couple of times. 24/7 we've been in a couple of times. Politics we've been in once. So we've literally just started branching into places where there's other people. And in a couple of instances, we've got old people that we've just churned through FED server, and they've come through the other end and then gone on to other servers because they are annihilated. And then we just end up seeing them again. Brenda being one example. I'm sure there's others. But there will be other people.
It's going to be a bunch of repeat offenders.
I don't mind that. Some people haven't heard those sorts of crappy discussions, and it's amusing for newbies who haven't heard those discussions. So maybe there's people in the audience that want to hear those for old time's sake as well. It's like, we've already taken apart these people based on their crappy logic.
So the flat Lloyd said he's gonna. Oh, he's here. Good morning, Lloyd. Yeah, he's gonna reach out to people right now, and hopefully some more people show up. But if not,
Okey-dokey.
whatever. You're cool,
We'll be
right?
fine. We'll be fine. I'll announce it. Like I say, what I do need, if you are you a moderator in Nathan Oakley 1980 on the live stream chat? Can you post links there?
I can.
Post a
In
link to this.
not on YouTube.
That's what I mean. In YouTube, type into
No.
the live stream chat. It's not live yet. Once we go live, go into YouTube. What's your name in YouTube? Same.
Vlad on 0 degrees.
Go into the live stream YouTube chat. Type with Vlad on 0 degrees, and I'll make you a moderator so that you can post a link to this. Do you know how to do that?
Yeah.
Perfect. Because then the
Post a
live
link to
stream
the
chat will
this
get a link.
server. Okay.
Yeah, so they'll get
Got it.
any live participant that's in the chat, and I'll announce that. We'll see that instead of going via the link in the bottom of the info box, it's a link that's in the live stream chat. Because it's 24/7. Then hopefully 24/7 will get some new participants and people who the word will spread. It'll be fine.
Sounds good. I already copied the link, so as soon as the show starts, I'll post it.
Awesome.
It's kind of funny. Y'all were talking about the setup of debates. That this topic is debated. Not that it's debatable. It's that this topic is debated. Looking at it from my knowledge now, it's not debatable. But I think that the idea that it is debatable is more important to the ballers than winning the argument sometimes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I kind of see where you're going. What you're suggesting, where I suggest that it's more nuanced with the feast of nonsense, you're making it broader and saying, no, there just needs to be a debate. Because if there is a debate when the subject is not debatable, there is then the idea that you can be on a ball when the debate comes up. It's not just a fait accompli. No, it's just measured flat. That's the end of the discussion. There is no debate here. You have to keep the debate alive, regardless of feast or nonsense or anything else more nuanced. Is that what you're suggesting? Just more broad? Must be a debate.
Right. Yeah, it's the way that the topic's approached is a lot of the problem, because they have arguments which are fallacious, but you don't make arguments for what is.
Yeah, it does make me laugh in 2024 when some of the positions we put forward are challenged, because it's somehow a bit more awkward to respond, like you say, in debate, because it's like, this isn't really questionable. And the principles that we're laying out here, you have to adhere to too. So that's the end, isn't it? There isn't anything to debate. But you find yourself forced into false dichotomy so the debate stays alive. Happened earlier when Righteous was talking about perspective. You're like, why are you doing this? We had the same critique of Ben yesterday. As much as he's on our side, it's like, when you go through the rigmarole of explaining how perspective works, you're arguing in false dichotomy for their failed claim that's fallacious in terms of the horizon being Earth curve. Number one, you don't have a positive claim to make in that regard. Number two, what is, when it comes to the horizon, isn't debatable. If you want to make a positive assertion about how it's utilized to demonstrate how Earth is flat, that's very different to lining up a false dichotomy by explaining how perspective works for their geometric Earth curve horizon. You don't need to do that. But by doing so, you keep the debate alive.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's all they need is the appearance of a debate for their minds to, allow them to go on, because they got to hold on to the idea that they could be right.
Yeah, it's still
Like if there's
left
a
as a
debate,
possibility. If there's a debate, even if there's a neutral outcome, it's still a globe possibility. We haven't failed. It isn't just a fait accompli. It's not just all over and for the crying fat lady.
Yeah, exactly. They need that more than they need anything else. Well, they need a flat plane more than they need anything else, but they need, yeah. But just the idea that there is a debate is what they want to keep alive, and that's why we're allowed to exist. I believe is part of the reason.
Yeah, I agree. We're necessary to keep the debate alive. If you just keep the winning side of a non-necessary debate in the prevalence of the public, then jobs are good. Hence, Simon Dunn completes that chain. Introduce the debate so it is debated about, so you can have some personalities raised to popularity in the technically losing position, but can't even describe it as that because there is no debate to have about what is. And when it comes to Earth, what is Earth? It's flat.
Yeah, and I was thinking about this earlier. Our language is sloppy. Now, here we go through the Socratic method on almost every word we use, and we really refine a lot of our understandings between this group and people who listen. But language, when I listen to people now, I hear it's everywhere. It's just sloppy.
Yeah. I hear people focused on their beliefs. It's all I can seem to hear at the moment. When people talk about what they think about the world, they just talk about what they believe to be true. It's amazing. People don't even realize they're doing it. When it comes to flat Earth, they'll ask you about what you believe. Why would you believe that? Well, that's not what I believe. You're like, wow, what world? I'm going to press a few buttons. We're going to go live shortly. Well, 3 or 4 minutes.
What's up, John? Did you hear that guy came in yesterday after we left? The show was over. The guy that was supposedly in a library.
Oh, he came in after we left. He did, huh?
Yeah, Mighty Mush was telling us, causing audio chaos. Righteous came in and sort of like calmed everything down, but he was being a rumpus. According to Mighty Mush, he wasn't listening to anybody.
Yeah, literally
Said
as soon
something
as
about the
Nathan, as soon
geometric
as you guys
horizon. What
left,
did he say, Mighty? What did he say about the geometric horizon?
I just asked him to define geometric horizon because that's what he was saying for a while, and he said it's the horizon that you would see if you weren't accounting for refraction. But that wasn't the problem. The problem was he wouldn't listen to anybody. He was talking over people. He was telling people he's gonna mute them. There's like bad moderation here, like nobody's doing shit. He's telling Elvis he's muting him, he's muting George. It was a audio chaos to say the least. But I guess Righteous came in after that and he smoothed it out, and that's all there is to it. In my opinion, the guy doesn't deserve to be on our server anymore. He's a troublemaker. He's arrogant. He sounded triggered and he didn't want to listen to anybody. But like I said,
He's
I won't talk
afraid.
about it anymore. Yeah, that's
He's
obvious, man.
afraid. He's in fear. Everything's
Like
taken
Nathan
away
said,
from him. Ask John how
who
he
goes into a
felt
library?
when.
One of you go.
I'm afraid because he might be speaking when I start talking. So Mighty Mush, go ahead.
You go ahead, brother. I've got to do something right now.
No, you go ahead.
I'm gonna go in. No, you go ahead.
No, you.
All right, I'm going to go ahead. John,
I'm going to mute both of you.
then you have.
Good morning, everyone.
Hello.
What up?
Good morning. As I said in the introduction, if you did want to join the show, there is going to be a link going by in the live stream chat. So usually I just indicate that there's a regular link to Flat Earth Debate Discord server, whereas in this instance we are in Flat Earth 24/7 Discord server, which is not as, if you want to call it that, because it's definitely not my server that I use daily. It's run by other people. But there we go. It's under the same title as the show, and our regular Home from Home, but not this particular day. So today we're in a different server. So if you are a member of Flat Earth 24/7, then you can join us in live stream 2, as opposed to live stream 1, which is obviously much better. But there we go. We'll make do with live stream 2 for today. How you feeling, Mush?
So Nathan, I'm ready to leave.
You're
I'm
ready,
ready to
are you,
leave a
Mush?
link.
You're all
Yeah, I left a
excited.
comment over there, so let me know.
And Mush was all excited because we're in a different place and he wanted to gather up as many people as possible to be in there for when the live stream show started, which is sweet.
That's right.
Anywho, so there we go.
So
Hello to everyone in my live stream chat. Good to have you. Bible, you, Riffraff. Good to see you both. Vlad, I'll make you a moderator so you can post this link. Right, what do I want to make you? Standard
I
moderator.
just posted a link, but I'm not sure if
You're a mod now.
if it's gonna be shown.
Yeah, you're a mod now, so you
Okay.
should be able to post that link.
There we go.
See if it swings its way by in the live stream chat. You can hopefully see it floating its way
Yep.
by. There we go. Excellent stuff. So you can join the 24/7 Discord server if you did want to join. Now, we made a unanimous decision yesterday. I say unanimous. There was lots of discussion about it. That we will continue doing a housekeeping. So we're going to ask a couple of questions, as we were doing, not the full shebango of housekeeping every day, but a couple of housekeeping questions. So we'll start with any elevation angle measurement acquirable from a curved baseline.
No one uses a curved line meeting a straight line to get an angle. That's not what an angle is.
The Earth is navigated, charted, measured, flat.
It must be.
On Friday last week, we covered Cox talking to Joe Rogan about how the solar system in the heliocentric model is asymptotically flat, which is something that John has covered on a couple of shows prior. But it was just interesting to hear Brian Cox actually going over it. And we know why. It can only function that way because the entire system is based on flat Earth measurements of angles to the stars. That's how the whole system's derived. Regardless of them taking flat, circular, radial values and making them spherical, the system itself still has to be functionally flat. And it is. For them and us. They need a flat Earth more than we do. Any evidence of the R value?
Oh, yeah.
Earth radius?
The only two ways I know to calculate it require the Earth to be a flat plane.
The two ways being Al-Biruni and Polaris, right?
Yes.
I like both of them. Al-Biruni because it shows the hardline principle that the assertion in Earth curve mathematics utilizes. That's a differential between eye level and surface level. So the way that the radial values derived in the first place is as they mean to go on with the Earth curve mathematics that gives you a geometric horizon below the surface level. The same below surface level curved Earth that Al-Biruni infers after he goes up a mountain that is measured off a flat plane. So you've got the same principles employed in both. But in more practical terms, you can navigate the Earth using the elevation angle measurement to Polaris to give you a equatorial radial value, minimum elevation angle measurement to Polaris, which is what we're on currently. That's our tip, right? So from that perspective, I like that one more because it's a practical application to navigate around the known surface of Earth, flat. And also where they get their radial value.
That's the one where they say when you're navigating the ground, you're not using, you're not on the ground.
That's the current
I
rebuttal.
can't remember.
We should focus on that more, really, because the Black Swan 2020, their rebuttal was Bogart refraction, leaving confusion in the mind's eye of anybody who's an observer to that subject matter discussion. In this instance, it's a far more cut and dry example for people to understand in the first instance with an angle measurement to Polaris. Minimum elevation angle when it reaches zero, the horizon, inferred, obviously you can't see it when it's at zero, is the outside edge of their then to be inferred sphere. But the measurement itself is off a flat plane. So people can understand that. What's the rebuttal? Well, the ground's not the ground. Well, yeah, it is, especially if you're dealing with latitude, a point that Brian's driven home recently. Exceptional point it is, because when you're dealing with navigation and circles of equal elevation, in the case of latitude, that's minimum elevation angle at radial value for sphere, and zenith if you're directly below Polaris in that system, with ever increasing circles of equal elevation moving out from the center. That's Polaris. Like I say, its zenith being if you were on your back lying on the ground flat, it would be directly above you. If you look straight up lying flat on the ground, that's zenith. Well, as you move away from it, each of those circles of equal elevation that form the latitude grid are on the ground for us and them. It's just the only way to acquire them and describe them cannot include refracted non-geometric horizons if you're going to describe it as a mapping system that's very specifically describing the ground. So they're buggered when it comes to latitude. Brian knows it, I know it. There is no wrangle-dangle with dip corrections or anything else when you're talking about a system that is very specifically detailing the ground, and the ground with areas of equal elevation measurable along a flat plane to Polaris. In all instances, that's a flat Earth proof through and through, and where they utilize the globe with a flat Earth measurement to start it.
Nathan, that's a lot of flat Earth you're talking about there.
Huge amount, yeah, it is. You're not wrong. But why wouldn't it be? That's how Earth is. It makes sense that all roads lead to a flat Earth, because that is how Earth is. It wouldn't be right if it wasn't the case and we were flat Earthers. There'd be something very amiss if some of the measurements actually did take place with a spherical surface in mind, and they were measured that way. I wouldn't be a flat Earther. The fact that we found our way to the fact that Earth is actually measured flat and dealt with flat and negotiated flat and charted flat, and that makes perfect sense. It is flat. Earth is a flat plane. So why wouldn't it be measured that way?
Yeah, that's my point when I say if the evidence that we have, say it was vice versa, I wouldn't be a flat earther anymore. So I don't understand what's keeping people on this spinning water ball.
The debate, once you find out it's the case, you negotiate your way through a concern with am I wrong? And in that process, you end up finding your way to the debate, which can leave ambiguity in your mind and therefore possibility that it is still a sphere. That's all you need. As long as the brainwashing comes thick and fast to the rest of the Western world. To do a QE plug tomorrow at, I believe it's 1 a.m. UK. Why is it so late, QE? QE's going to do a treatment on, I've forgotten the guy's name. What's the guy's name? Peterson, Planet Peterson. So be here or be sphere on the Quantum Eraser YouTube channel, and you'll get a QE live treatment. I would suggest you watch it on Friday if you're in the UK, unless you're a late person and you like staying up till a horrendous time in the morning. 11 in Australia. There you go. 11 a.m. in Australia. That's not a bad time. Hopefully get some Aussie viewers. I fired a hello to Mitchell from Australia, actually, because I hadn't spoken to him in ages. Like, everything all right with the kids and you and the family? And I was like, yeah, back at you. It's just like, I don't know what to say to Mitch. I haven't spoken to him for ages, but I just want to touch base with him.
How is he?
I don't know. Other than the pleasantries of how are you and the family, to which he replied good, and I replied the same. That was it. It was just a quick Skype back and forth, because I thought, I haven't spoken to him in ages.
Well, it's like with Flatsoid. I haven't spoken to him in a long time either. When I hear somebody talk to him, I kind of wonder about him.
He's doing. It's going to sound so arrogant. He's where I was when I first started doing the debate. Right, he's not on the cutting edge just yet, but he's pretty close. But he's going to be making mistakes, and then he's going to get corrected on those mistakes. He's thrown himself in at the deep end. That's how I describe Flatsoid at the moment. And he's not drowning, is he?
Yeah, but Flatsoid knows.
No.
Flatsoid knows what?
Flatsoid knows the score. Not talking about you 10 years ago. This is well along now. Flatsoid knows the score. Why is he entertaining these things? Why is he not just obliterating the people that he has on? I don't know. But the other day, that little clip you played was very telling.
What clip? I can't remember what clip I played.
The one where he started, instead of just killing the argument, he went to the Feast of Nonsense with the guy and started talking about the Jesuits.
Yeah, with You Are Mopped. Yeah, I broke down every single bit of what You Are Mopped said in his comment section, and his response, Flatsoid's response, was to say, look, it was a chit-chat. You're like, fair enough. I mean, the guy You Are Mopped specifically, yeah, he's got his fundamental beliefs that he will deny and even question the validity of questioning, but he doesn't seem like a fundamentalist zealot that's going to shout you down in anger when you contradict some of his points. So for me, I would have said it was the ideal opportunity to go through some of those points with him, but Flatsoid perhaps didn't want to ruin his day and just wanted to, make friends with him and whatever. I don't know. That's a bizarre position that he took, but he can do what he likes, right?
Yeah, well, let's say it's to be continued. We'll see how he deals with him again. Maybe Flatsoid's slick and he's bringing him in to drop the hammer. I hope so.
I don't know. I don't. I still watch Flatsoid. I tune in now and again when I've got the time to do so. And yeah, he's got a good show. I haven't got any issues with Flatsoid. The fact that we can go through.
Neither do I.
The fact that we can go through some of the things he does and critique him on it. Number one, he's normally pretty grateful when we do that. No, I think it's beneficial. So
yes, he is. He welcomes critique.
Exactly. Hopefully we're not harsh when we do it. Anything, I'm more of a snowflake than he is. So yesterday, Mark Sargent was a little bit critical when he said I was abusive to my counterparts. He didn't even specify. But nevertheless, I was a bit put out by that. I still thanked him. I sent him a message thanking him for the shout out, which he didn't have to do. So who's a bigger snowflake?
Well, hold on a second. Because every time you bring up Mark Sargent, we never go after him. He has a specific job. He's for the newbies, and we praise him for that. So for him to turn around and give you a plug like that, I thought that was a little bit of a backhand, and I don't like it.
Maybe he doesn't like us saying he's for the newbies. There's nothing to not like about Mark Sargent, though. There's nothing Mark Sargent does wrong. And like what you call a backhanded slight against me, I don't necessarily see it that way. He's preemptively telling an audience member that they might get here, thinking they can step into a nice, easy debate. And if they're not pre-warned that it's going to be a hard time, he just chose his words the way he chose them. Fair enough.
Oh, I see what you're saying. If he did that, then fine. He's giving him a little warning. You're heading into the hippo pond, and they seem nice and pleasant, but boy, do they crack watermelons when you stick them in their face.
Exactly.
Especially watermelons that look like a globe.
Yeah, exactly. So I think he's just preemptive in that. But we're amongst the rubble now, aren't we? So, even in a different server now, it's very quiet because we're walking around the rubble. So who have we got in 24/7? Any new faces, or has everyone from our server just migrated their way here? I don't know what you're worrying about, Mighty Mush. It's not like migrating somewhere else has meant that the conversation has particularly changed from Discord. Yes, Nathan, I completely agree.
No, sorry, I was just trying to leave a link again in the YouTube channel.
I see that. Good stuff. Yeah, we are in 24/7 today, so if you did want to join us here, feel free. The link's going by, and it means that hopefully some of the audience will actually join the 24/7 server where they may not have already. And why are the audience numbers so crap? I didn't think going out on the wrong stream yesterday would have such a detrimental effect on my viewing figures. There's only like 40 people watching. Please share the show if you've not done so already. Smash that share button. Nothing wrong with what Mark stated. I don't know, Mike, 808. Mike says that he doesn't disagree with Mike. I wouldn't say I was abusive. I do take a bit of umbrage with that description. You know, where I give as good as I get from fundamentalist religious zealots who rumpus the crap out of anything you have to put to them, I'll treat them as they treat me. Now, if that means that, as John put it yesterday, it means I've sunk to their level, therefore I get described as being abusive, I don't know. I don't know if that sits necessarily well with me, other than the fact that I've had to be sat down by several more Christian of the group to say, no, the way you behave is not necessarily as shareable as you might think. So how can I disagree with Mark? So there's two sides to everything. But I'm glad you commented on it, Mike. Nothing wrong with what Mark stated. Yeah, we will go to some of the other servers though. 24/7's obviously not that chatty. Maybe we'll go to Earth Awakenings sometime this week. John suggested that we give a bit more of a heads up before we do so. So I would suggest, given it's only Tuesday, that we go into Earth Awakenings on Friday. How's that sound?
That sounds great, man. Did you do a housekeeping already?
Yeah, we did. I'm just
this
going to do a
morning?
couple of questions. So elevation angle and R value today. I'll do a couple more tomorrow.
Why not keep the housekeeping? I always thought they were perfectly formulated, just perfect questions, man. I
Because
understand Righteous's point, but still.
if you get into them, keeping it limited to a couple typically means that you'll spend about 20 minutes there or thereabouts. Or about 20 minutes of the show will have elapsed by the time you get to the end of the second housekeeping question being answered. In this case, we're about halfway through. 20, 25 minutes, is where you want to be when you're getting to the end of the housekeeping question. If something's happened and it happens to coincide with me asking a housekeeping question, then that could take up 3/4 of an hour just discussing some specific instance from a YouTuber that's covered a specific question that I happen to have asked on that day. Now, if you try and make your way through all of them each day, that one question that's got a particular lengthy answer to might not get its full credit, might not get the full story conveyed to the audience in the time available because I want to go through all of them and make sure we've covered every housekeeping question. So I don't think that's necessary. If we make sure each housekeeping question is covered throughout the week, then yeah, number one, there's a bit of variety for those who are regular viewers. It's not always the same series of questions in the identical format, just maybe the order might change each day. It's like each housekeeping question will get asked throughout the week. But if you tune in on Monday, you're not going to just tune in on Tuesday and get the exact same rendition of the same housekeeping questions. There'll be a different question, and therefore potentially a different discussion point that gets opened up in each day's housekeeping session. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Fair enough. I'm just saying, if you run out of things to talk about, you can always go back to a housekeeping question.
I mean, if you want to do housekeeping questions now, I don't mind going through all of them now. If you want to do that, is that what you're suggesting? Because I don't mind doing that.
Sure. Yeah, man.
We'll just do
I
the rest of
always
them.
thought they were perfectly formulated questions.
Well, how
I
about
love
this?
it.
I'll go through the rest of the housekeeping questions, and then we'll cover a video if someone wants to dig one out. If someone's got something we want to respond to, hopefully by the time we've covered the rest of the housekeeping questions, there's something else to respond to. If not, I'm going to talk about Brian's video, which was epic. So we'll do the housekeeping, see if the video turns up in Master B. If not, I'm going to talk about Brian, and then maybe he'll make an appearance. We'll see. He made a really good video. In fact, I'm going to plug that
Perfect.
first before we do housekeeping. So, Brian.
Okay, if you're hinting about videos, Nathan, I don't have, I'm in Vermont, I'm working, and I won't have any videos ready for you until next week.
No, that's fine.
If you're just hinting anything, all right.
No, that's fine. If anybody wants to cover something, they can stick it in Master B, and then we'll cover it. But yeah, in the meantime, I want to promote this video. So, Brian is covering the 1 degree for every 60 nautical miles / 69 statute miles in this video. And I want you to give Brian a bit of encouragement because he does all this research, puts it all together and sticks it out in a video. And he needs more praise for what he does. I steal all of his information in this regard. and so should you. If you're an audience member, you need to pay attention to what Brian's doing, because he's got the goods. You know, he knows what he's talking about. And what I like more than anything about Brian is I'll often come to my comment section, and he'll save me about 10 minutes because he'll have done what I see as work. So it's like the first job of the day, going through the comments and responding when someone says something to the effect of, "Have you ever explained how you can use a sextant on a flat Earth?" And I'll be like, "A sextant only works on a flat Earth. What are you talking about?" But I'll get there, and Brian will have done the similar thing already before I've got there. Like, he's presumably been up at 2 a.m. and, "Oh, I just wonder what they said on that most recent flat Earth debate in the comment section." "Oh, you idiot. You can only use a sextant on a flat Earth. It measures angles, you fool." And I'll get that from Brian to a commenter. But my point being that he's absolutely on the cutting edge. Why wouldn't he be as part of the show? But he's got his own channel, and he puts out these videos, and they're great. So go and check him out. Go and subscribe today. Don't need to let him know out Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. I'm sure he's well aware that we're talking about his video now. But if nothing else, I might just, how long was it? 20 minutes. If we've got time after housekeeping and nothing else comes up, I'm tempted to just play Brian's video. Because I think
I agree.
Because it is good. Okay, right, let's cue it up to the beginning. He starts talking about 35 seconds in. There we go. Talking as in subject matter talking. Okay, any evidence you can have gas pressure without a container?
Are you saying if there was available space, would gas not fill that available space? Is that what you're saying?
That is in essence the question, yes.
No.
Okay, then. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge, formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
The horizon is not Earth curve. It's impossible to have a horizon on a spherical object. Slope-a-dope. Earth is flat. That's why you have a horizon.
That's correct.
Also,
both disappear in relation to the plane, and they disappear bottom up. We know up and down is in relation to a plane.
Any scientific...
Yeah, you can't assert...
Oh, go on. I left it. I thought it would continue. Please share the show if you're watching. Edging our way up to 50 viewers. Wow, amazing. Sorry, John, go ahead.
Yeah, you can't... you can't curve surface level and assert a geometric horizon.
It's below surface level. Geometric horizon only exists in the maths. End quote, the rumpus. The horizon that you do not see. That's Earth curve, right?
Perhaps you should explain angular resolution, Nathan, because nobody seems to understand it.
Why?
I know when I first heard it, I was like, angular resolution, what the fuck's that? I don't know. But then as soon as the word resolve came into my head, I was like, oh, that's where I can resolve a thing. It becomes simple all of a sudden, doesn't it?
Yes and no. I'm not decrying question, but by the same token, number one, kudos. To understand this is, number one, complicated. Number two, not discussed generally in public spaces because everyone's a globe believer. But number three, and in my humble opinion, moving into 2024, more importantly, not necessary. Let me explain why. When our opponents on the globe side make a positive assertion that there is a physical geometric sphere edge that we identify as, quote, the horizon, and it fails, shout out to TB in the chat. Black Swan debunked Earth curve. Yep, absolutely correct. So, with that in mind, what necessity do we have to explain what forms the horizon as a flat earther? Now, not saying that it might not be of interest to you. It obviously is, Andy. But not in debate. It only introduces a false dichotomy where they say the horizon is Earth curve and we say it's an optical resolution limit diffraction. and then rail off the Rayleigh criterion to explain and justify our position. Position for what? What's our positive claim? That the horizon isn't Earth curve? How does that affirm our positive flat Earth position? It doesn't. It just puts you in false dichotomy. But because you know how perspective works, you're going to argue the toss for proving that it isn't Earth curve? That's their positive claim.
This is exactly what I was saying the other day on Geos. It's nothing to do with flat Earth. It's just how your eyes work.
Yeah, and that's fascinating. It is interesting, but only interesting because you, in this particular arena, and I'm not saying for you personally, but formerly had an idea that it represented the curve of the Earth, the horizon, that is. So when you appreciate that isn't the case, you might then, subsequently, as a folly, go, well, I wonder what does cause the horizon. And then you get into perspective and angular resolution limits and the Rayleigh criterion and how your eyeballs work and how lenses work and how moving closer to the deck will limit that angle. It's all the same subject. But for what end does it prove Earth's flat? No. Can you use it to infer Earth's flat? Yeah. But they used it to infer there was a sphere-edge horizon. That failed. Now there's no need for you to understand it. You might want to, but there's no need as a flat earther to explain it. And if you do, you're in a false dichotomy argument where it leaves the open possibility that, while your argument for perspective might be wrong, my argument for it being a sphere edge to Earth is still a possibility, because we've argued the false dichotomy for 2 hours without a victor. I would prefer, just to make this a bit more useful to you specifically, Andy, is say, take their example because it utilises the horizon and put it into a practical flat Earth example where you're measuring utilising the horizon, albeit with a sextant, as we've discussed that on this show, and then show your opponent how that does prove a flat Earth, how you have a prerequisite of Earth being flat for that tool to function at all. You can't even look at a sextant if you're a globe believer because it has no practical application anymore. However, as a Earth that's flat and an angle to a position below a star, you can save your life. You can plot out your position because we've mapped and charted the world flat with those same elevation angles off a flat Earth, utilizing the horizon with this tool known as a sextant. So you're not necessarily juxtaposing their argument with your argument for perspective, aka false dichotomy. You're taking it to a different claim. The horizon is used to measure Earth flat because it is. And that's far more practical. What use is the horizon being Earth curve? Does the boat going over it, according to your vision, use anything in practical terms to help you in life? No. All it does is affirm a sphere believer's bias that they've got an Earth curve edge horizon. That's all it does. It doesn't have any practical use. What about using the horizon to establish a flat plane to measure an angle to a star? Has that got any practical use? Yeah, saves lives. Measuring a flat Earth. So for me, it's contrast with something that does prove a flat Earth rather than figure out why the horizon forms, which is their claim of Earth curve. Your claim of perspective, it's not a claim.
Well, they're probably just going to say a tangent. They're going to use a tangent line, an imaginary line. No?
Well, that's my point. You're back into false dichotomy. They're describing a non-perspective world with tangent points in orthographic view. You're describing a perspective-based reality where the optical dissolution point forms the horizon. Why? So that they can have their argument about tangent points in orthographic view. You're back into false dichotomy, and that argument can continue for 2 hours. And from an audience perspective, they go, I am left with the possibility of the one side's claim that it's Earth curved and geometric and blocking boats and buildings as potentially true. Therefore, I can go about my life on a ball. If you say that fails, black swan, without regurgitating the argument and how that functions, black swan, meanwhile, the horizon's used to measure Earth flat, you're not taking it away from their position that the horizon is Earth curved, positive claim that fails. No, the horizon's used to measure Earth flat and navigate and save your life at sea if you're lost. What does your horizon that failed to be Earth curved get used for? Oh, it doesn't? Yeah, that's because it isn't. Meanwhile, it does get used to save lives at sea and establish a horizontal plane of reference. That's how Earth is charted and mapped. Flat. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety? No? No claims of spin?
No.
I was going to say
discuss this one point though, if I could.
Yeah, go ahead, say
for a
so.
moment. The arguments out in the wild right now. The one that I think annoys me the most, obviously, is the inference that they make, and I want to see what kind of actual fallacy this is, but the inference that they make about star rotation. So it's not an affirming the consequence, right? If they just say, I see the stars move from east to west, whatever. When does it become a fallacy after that?
No, that is a fallacy. It's straight up
I mean,
begging
the
the
mark,
question. That's begging the question.
like begging the question, right? So I guess I would ask a more technical question about fallacies, because you guys have mentioned once before that they can use a tactic where they're not actually affirming the consequent, but it seems like it, because the stars rotate, right? The Earth is rotating or is moving. It's not the stars. Something to that effect. But
Yeah,
if
that
it's
is.
just straight begging the question,
To just say
then
it, to just assume the outcome, Earth's a ball because we see the stars moving, right? That's straight begging the
right,
question fallacy. What you're
okay,
describing isn't affirming the consequent. They only state half of it. So typically, if they're competent in fallacy use, they'll establish the begging the question fallacy as a premise in the discussion and then affirm the consequent. So they don't have to state the if P then Q bit. They can just affirm the consequent. Well, because we see the
right,
stars turning in the southern hemisphere, Earth's obviously a sphere. They don't even have to say Earth's obviously a sphere if they've already established it in the principle of the discussion that you're having. They can just say, well, because we see the stars rotating. And you're like, well, what fallacy is that? It's just begging the question, right? No, because the way the discussion has moved into that, they've already established there, begging the question that Earth is a sphere, and that as a consequence, if that's the case, we're going to see the star rotation. But because we do, which is the bit that you actually get stated to you, see that star rotation, they don't then even have to make the conclusion Earth's a sphere. They can just go silent. But it is still an affirming the
right.
consequent, is my point. Just not saying it in its full form when the form has been established through discussion is still an affirming the consequent, as much as it may not seem that because they haven't formally stated it in its full if P then Q, Q therefore P statement in one go.
Yep,
Breaking it up doesn't change the
yep,
fallacy, is my point.
right. Um, and I find them doing this pretty much with everything. And you've said this before, that everything is based upon a begging the question fallacy, essentially, because if they use the word tangent point, right, because they're going to say, well, we can measure elevation angles from a tangent plane. They've already begged the question that they're on a sphere or a circle, and they've created a tangent plane. So it seems to happen pretty much everywhere in every argument. They're
Yeah,
always going to beg the question.
exactly. So if you're going to suggest that you're measuring from a flat plane, I still assume that that flat plane will meet out in space at the 90-degree angle on the ground that isn't there anymore, and Earth is dangling
Yeah,
below as a dingleberry. I will assume this. It's like, well, number one, it doesn't work, but that still allows them to have a principle that measures Earth flat on what they're calling a tangent, with a begging the question dingleberry dangling below it. Yeah, their methodology for self-delusion is begging the question, but they've been brainwashed, we all were, into an automatic understanding or belief that it is an understanding that Earth is spherical. Therefore, it doesn't seem wrong to automatically assume that that is the case in your example. It just means that you have to come along and say, no, you are actually begging the question. And when you get a response, how
sure,
can it be begging the question when I already know it's a sphere? You will
right,
get that.
absolutely. All right, thank you.
Any evidence you can have gas pressure without a container?
You asked that
Without
already,
the
but I'll answer it
container, there
again.
will be
No.
no pressure.
Did I ask that already? Oh, fine.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you
I
did.
said,
Yep.
are you
And
saying that if there was a space,
Yeah, I
gas would
did. You're
fill
right.
it?
Okay. Well, I did ask another one, but it didn't get a full answer. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Are you serious? First of all, which one we talking about?
The one that holds gas pressure to a ball, as we've just covered it. That's why I wanted to go in that order.
so a container type of gravity.
Well, they don't describe it as a container, although the fundy anti-flat earthers might badly phrase it that way. That is to say, gravity's the container. No, gravity's not even a force, but you use gravity to explain why you've got a second law of thermodynamics violation in your model of a sphere Earth taken from flat Earth measurements. That's what they might say as an anti-flat earther. other language that uses begging the question mentality is things like orbits. If you ever hear the word orbit used, you should instinctually know that that incorporates the premise of a sphere Earth in motion based on flat Earth measurements of angles to stars that have been turned into spherical motion. So as soon as someone says, well, how can this work with orbits? Or when something in the sky is performing an orbit, you're like, well, you're describing an angular motion measured off a flat plane turned into a spherical motion called an orbit, automatically assuming the premise that you're trying to prove when you're a globe believer. But spotting those sorts of begging the question fallacies isn't, it stops being subtle when you know the trick, when you know the trigger word that's incorporating globe faith into any claim that's being made. Does that make sense?
Well, I would hate to beg the
Yes.
question with you that gravity is as it's described or what they're thinking of, even in that situation.
What comes back
They would have
to
to
Neil's.
define their terms, right?
Exactly. It comes back to what Neil says. Well, which gravity?
Yeah.
Exactly. Someone in the chat was saying, did you get that from C++ or whatever he's called? Yeah, I did. That's where I got the point from. So I don't know if you can see in the chat. But it's impossible for Earth, the Sun, and the Moon to float in a fixed, flat orbit. They must be spherical. Like, right, so you're just begging the question of an orbital motion. You assume that they're rocks floating around and can't square the circle of that working in a flat plane. It's like, no, the measurements of a spherical orbit were taken from a flat plane to better describe them. But it doesn't make the world a spherical world. It just means you're capable of begging the question that Earth's a spherical world by reification because you think that you've got an actual orbit. Well, no, you don't. The stars do what they do when you look at them. And former members of the church have turned that into spherical motion. That doesn't mean it is. It just means that's how they've described it. You've reified it into your world. And then you say,
you
but it
say
couldn't work
rocks
on
in
a flat
space,
Earth.
but
Sorry, Neil,
doesn't
go
the
on.
moon look like a rock?
Yeah, a little bit. Other than rocks don't float around in the sky, Neil.
And they don't glow. Usually rocks don't glow.
No. There's a lot of things the moon does that rocks don't. You can say, yeah, but it's got this comparison to a rock, and you're like, yeah, it does, doesn't it? So what? Correlation isn't causation.
Hold
Rocks
on a
also don't
second. I got rocks that glow.
Oh yeah, what rock's
When
that?
they assume enough when they absorb enough sunlight, they will glow. So maybe the moon is absorbing all the sunlight, and that's what's causing it to glow.
You're saying you've got solar luminescent rocks? What rocks are these?
You could buy like a toy rock that it glows in the dark, right? You put
No,
it
this-
in the light for a while, and then it glows
No, there's certain
later on when
polymers
it's
that do
dark.
that. I don't know about rocks. What about rocks doing that?
Neil, do you know of any rocks that disappear for 3 days out of the month?
No, I don't.
I was
We just
thinking-
can't see it.
It's there, but we just can't see it. Well, then it's not there.
Have you ever heard them say, like, the Earth must be a sphere because the shadow cast on the moon? It would be if it was a flat Earth, it looked like a minus sign.
Yeah, I've got that.
And they try to put.
I've got that as one of the slides that goes by in the Hangout. Yes, go ahead.
Right. Well, the reason they say that is because they take their measurements from the same flat plane that we are talking about. And then they try to put it in a geometric position. And they say, well, it can't be flat, even though we just measured it that way, because if we put it in this geometric position, it would look like a minus sign. And then they try to ascribe to the flat earthers that they're the ones actually claiming that. It's
in
insane.
reality, it's projection, because that's actually a fail of the globe motion, is what you're saying, right? It's like it can't work this way because we measure it flat, and if we actually had the orbital motion described in heliocentrism, we would have a minus sign. Yeah, you would in your orbit.
Says who?
Yeah, that's exactly what they did with the solar system just a minute ago. Yeah.
Well, look, have you guys ever seen what a straight object shadow cast on a sphere looks like?
versus what a sphere's shadow cast on another sphere looks like?
Probably. Why?
Well, because it's not the way they describe it. When you try to cast a sphere shadow on another sphere, it gives you an S curve. And when you cast a straight object on a sphere, it gives you a curved shadow. So their entire idea of what the shadow should look like is just wrong on its face, easily demonstrated.
Yeah, the assumption that it's a shadow at all is wrong in many ways. I haven't seen many shadows turn
True.
red or go in the opposite direction of the thing claiming to be occulting them and producing the shadow. None of it makes any sense. Hello, Adam.
Hey, Adam.
Afternoon.
Got a few more housekeeping questions, and we might get to Brian, hopefully, if there's still time.
But that's actually a good point to talk about those. So many people will phrase it like this. Well, first they'll jump the gun that it's the shadow of the earth, right? That's the first assumption, right? Which you could just nip that at the bud. But they'll then say, well, the shadow, quote unquote, of the earth is round on the surface of the moon, right? Therefore, the object in question must also be round. Now, that logic would follow if all the conditionals are proven and all the premises are proven. But then you have to ask, well, can a straight object make a curved shadow on a curved surface? And the answer is yes. So their premise isn't even true.
Yeah, but in this instance, though, AI, we're saying what they're doing is they're taking a penny and putting it into an orbit to create the occultation. And they're saying the side edge of the penny is what would create it based on the orbital motion applied to a flat plane that's a penny, like a pancake. That's as a rebuttal to us, saying how their claim of presupposed orbital motion taken from measurements of a flat plane wouldn't work on a flat plane, because the orbital motion they infer to better describe the motion of the stars doesn't work when you reify it into a penny with an orbital motion of the other stars around it in a non-favored position, sun-centric.
Yeah. Yeah, they're assuming the thickness of the Earth. They're also assuming the attitude of the Earth, because if the Earth was a penny but turned at an angle, it would be sufficient to cast a circular shadow onto the moon. But the point I'm making is that it doesn't matter whether the object is round or not. Okay, and the sphere itself is what causes the curved shadow. A straight object will cast a curved shadow onto a sphere because the surface of the sphere is curved. That seems to be a thing that they don't grasp when they're talking about this point.
Right, as a response to them, though, as opposed to any inference that you'd know that it is even a shadow, but you did disclaim that early on. Moving on.
All these impressions
Go on.
are taken from an imagined viewpoint of you within the cosmos, right? So you go into your mind space and then you retract yourself out of your own head, float out into somewhere far away from Earth, and then you can see all these objects and their relationship to each other. Right? Yeah. That's what you see in your mind. But no one's ever had that vantage point to be able to tell you that that's where those objects are relative to each other. No astronaut has ever been anywhere to be able to see that. No quote unquote satellite has ever been even alleged anywhere to be able to see that.
Well, you can't.
We've never been given any of that.
Well, you can't, because you have to take this, you kind of hinted on it, you have to take the step of reification first. So you go from measurements of Earth and the motion of the stars to flat plane radial value extrapolation, turned into spherical, turned into orbital motion, taken away from being central positional wise, moved to sun-centric, then the step of you being devoid of the position you made the first measurements from on the ground, which is no longer the central position because it's sun-centric. And then you're describing, once you've taken those steps of reification into that modelling process to better understand where the stars might appear in the night sky, to saying, no, I am actually in that motion described in these maths. It's like, you've got to take some big steps. Now, I appreciate that is actually how the Western world do view the solar system, like it is a potential place to go to be able to have that vantage. And you're saying, if it was a potential place to go, nobody's had that vantage point to see back at this stepping out of the reification in the first instance. You're not even on the ground that it was measured from flat in the first place. You're stepping away into the space that the stars are moving around. It's like, no, they're only ever relevant from the place they were viewed from, the ground that they were measured from. So stepping out of that, not just into a space motion where you're moving around the sun on the ground that you're measuring, you're actually stepping away from that ground and looking back at it. It's like, man, these are some pretty conceptually crazy stuff that most normies can actually deal with because they're told it is so. But to comprehend the fact that it is reification and a visualization of something that is not real, explaining that to your average normie is actually far more complicated than them just going through the complicated steps of stepping back out into a solar system. Then again, I don't know why I'm saying it's difficult for a normie to do. They presented it with visual aids. Here's you from Alpha Centauri looking back at Earth. Oh, wow, yeah, so I am. I'm right there, man.
Right. So if you could see it from that position, then gas could fill all the way out to that position, could it not?
Yeah, but seeing is believing,
Right.
and just seeing it like this. This is behind the word space debunked, just the moonrise. Very devoid of what is behind flat Earth debate now, with Simon Dan dangling out an aeroplane without Earth turning underneath it, or helicopter. The two views are very, very different because one is real and one is not. That's something else I saw, Joe Rogan and Elon Musk, and there's a different version of him saying, it looks real because it's so fake, or it's not fake because it looks so fake, or something like that. Well, he did the similar but not the same rendition with Joe Rogan. And Joe Rogan's looking at the Starman footage with Don't Panic on the dashboard of the Tesla in space. He's like, so is this one real? He's like, oh, yeah, that one's real. And is this one real? It's like, why are you even questioning whether or not it's real? You already know it's not because you wouldn't be asking. This is to Joe. But you've got to ask whether or not it's real, and you just trust Elon when he says it is. Oh, yeah, that's definitely real. What about the GoPro? Oh, yeah, that's fine. Just on a stick on the side of the car. Yeah, it's fine. Like, why are you even asking? It's obviously not real. And one of his disclaimers is, it's not fake because it looks so fake. Or it's real because it looks so fake.
Before you move away from the moon, Nathan, could you talk about the cold light of the moon? Because in my mind, light can never be cold, but I could be wrong. But I saw on Taboo Conspiracy's latest video, Mark Sargent. I don't really watch Mark Sargent, so to me, it's like he just emerged. I've not seen him for several years, and he was talking about the cold light of the moon. And I was like, oh, and he's like, the mainstream don't want to touch that. So
Yeah, fair enough. Before we go on this idea that light can only make things hot is just straight up false. So I'll give you a question and I'll answer it myself. What is the way that we as humans get things the coldest possible? So obviously we have a refrigerator. That's one way we get things cold. We could do liquid nitrogen, pour it on something, that'll get things cold. But the actual mechanism that we use to make things the coldest that we can ever make them is lasers, light. We use light to make things cold.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Now you know.
That's interesting.
So
how so?
The tangent I take, just to answer your question, sorry to interrupt you, AI. Just to answer you. So where would I take that as opposed to answering you? You've already had the reason why you wouldn't answer that question from AI. Thank you, AI. Is to take it to the specular reflections that are claimed and impossible in the heliocentric model. They're claiming it's a reflection of the light of the sun. That's not possible. You wouldn't get an even distribution of the light from the moon in the way that we do if the light was, as they claimed, to be reflected off it. So the way you would take, if you want to look it up in terms of how that actually functions, just look up or type in specular reflections. And instantaneously you'll know why their claim of how the moon reflects the light from the sun can't work. Now, in terms of the moon's production of its own light, to me, feel free to disagree, that is self-evident. Cold or otherwise. Plenty of examples. I don't know if Adam's going to pipe up because he's certainly investigated it more than I have. at a cursory glance, it seemed we discussed it a couple of weeks ago during the eclipse. As far as my own personal experience, it got very cold at totality. That's what is that? Anecdotal at best. Other people have put thermometers on stuff and in some form or another tried to control the environment so they can give a more conclusive result. And time again, they show that the moon seems to produce a cold light. Again, not conducive with heliocentric descriptions of reflections of sunlight. Nevertheless, it's an interesting folly. I mean, I don't see it as anything else other than an interesting folly, because we don't know what it is. In the same way, we don't know what the sun or the sky is. So it's one of those delightful subjects where we might be the ones to find out what it actually is, or better understand it, or hopefully find some more practical uses for it. Instead, we live in a world where what seems to be a very good way of tracking time has been taken away from us. You know, we've got 12 calendar months rather than 13 calendar moon cycles, moods, if you will. Why? Well, why not? That's the question you should be asking. Why have we had that taken from us? When it does have a use, we're not using it. Why not? I don't know the answer to that. It's rhetorical. Go on, sorry.
The calendar aspect of it is really interesting as well, just from the sun worshippers angle. Yeah, I like that.
Well, the religion is a sun-worshipping religion, just in the very title. So if you're a heliocentrist, you are a sun-centric religion. That's what that is in the title. Heliocentric. Nobody realizes that they're in a religion. Religions are very useful for keeping people under control. And throughout time, there's always been prevalent religions. Now, obviously, the current Western world doesn't have a acute awareness that they're in a religion, but they are. And it serves the same purpose as any other religion throughout history. Just now they're in a heliocentric sun-worshipping religion and they don't even know it. Based on belief, too. And even, we were talking about this in the pre-show, a lot of the language we used is focused around people's beliefs. When you're asked why you're a flat earther, why would you believe that? That's not what I believe. Who cares what you believe? We're doing slightly better than yesterday on viewing for figures. We're up to 83 people watching. Woohoo! Edging our way back up to 100 after lots of interruptions. Finally back on the rails.
Should be thousands.
Oh, well, if we can get back over 100, I'll be happy that we're going in the right direction after a slight hiatus through electrical and computer issues. So I'm pleased. Thank you for sharing the show. If you've done so already, please smash the share button if you haven't. We'll go a little bit longer. We've got a little bit more live show, yes. Right. Did we cover all the housekeeping? Any evidence of self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Yes.
Again?
Since you parsed it with presupposed, then the only evidence necessary is the presupposition itself. Since I can go to a textbook and find that people do claim there's a molten iron core, then that is an evidence of the presupposition. I rest my case.
Yeah, good job. Yes, you can demonstrate the evidence of the presupposition by opening a textbook and showing that people do suppose there is a molten iron core at the centre of Earth with a radius value measured off a flat plane. That does demonstrate the answer to the question, smarty pants. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a spherical Earth? What you gonna do now, AI? Huh? Move on is what I'm gonna do. Right, I think we've covered all the housekeeping questions. If we've not, that's fine, because we will do about a couple a day from now on. We won't.
Hold on. We got to set the record straight. Anytime you think I'm wrong, it's just a Mandela effect.
Think about it.
Like
You remember that time you thought you were wrong, but you were mistaken?
It's like there's two rules that you need to adhere to. Rule number 1, I am always right. Rule number 2, if I am wrong, refer to rule 1. Not that I adhere to those principles, but I don't know if I like the Mandela effect. Whenever I hear my eldest daughter, who's 7, listening to garbage on YouTube, it comes up more frequently than I can mention. People talk about Mandela effect in mainstream all the time.
Really, I don't actually watch much mainstream stuff, so I'm surprised to hear that. You saying they're saying it to kids?
Yeah.
Is that really?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, I have my daughter listening to whatever crap she gets pushed towards her on YouTube. I don't know. Typically, the case your average 7-year-old's probably got what YouTube would categorize as an older, maybe 10 or 11-year-old's mentality. But whatever they categorize it as, the stuff that she gets exposed to, they're talking about Mandela effect, and I overhear it a lot.
It's a really good way to use manipulation, isn't it? That's the way I see it, anyway. This is how you may have remembered it. This is either way, it keeps you off balance, so it's good for many things. But I think it's very important for us, well, for me, to point out that it's nonsense.
I watched Paula, Bible U, who's in the chat now, talking about this and breaking it down over the last couple of months, much to her frustration. And throughout that process, it got more and more concise in terms of the best ways to break it down. And one of the best statements she gave in this regard was to say that the supposition of Mandela effect includes the premise that Mandela effect itself is affecting everything except your memory.
Well, how do we know that the Mandela effect is not just the Mandela effect itself?
If it affected your memory, we would never know. But that's the fundamental flaw, isn't it, in the logic of Mandela effect? It's like, number one, any bonehead knows that everyone's fallible in that regard. Your memory's not perfect. So to suppose that the world around you and timelines and dimensions are changing, therefore changing the titles of books and children's TV shows and things like that, is to suggest that your memory is perfect, but the alteration in the world
isn't that the appeal? Think about it. If my memory is consistent, then I'm one of the special ones, right?
That makes you very special, perfect memory man.
Exactly. So it serves the whole purpose of that type of thinking, right? To make you unique, special, and different. So why would being told that dissuade those types of people? Now, a perfectly rational person might say, you know what, that's a good point. But someone who's swayed by that type of stuff is going to be like, oh, that's a great point. I'm even more special than I thought I was.
Yeah. Kind of how Flat Earth was pitched when I first got here, actually. And I remember Validation Boy suggesting it quite overtly, which is to say, look, you've acquired this special knowledge. Just don't tell anybody. Just know it and not care. Go about your day. You don't have to be that person that goes around telling everyone so that you feel special about the fact you know something someone else doesn't. You know, now you know. Good for you.
That's not why you tell people.
I'm not suggesting I agree. I'm just telling you what back in the day Validation Boy said. Shout out to Flat Earth, Vlad on 0 degrees rather. Thanks to everyone on Flat Earth server for hosting today's show. Yeah, indeed, that should be my job. You're paying me, and I'm the one who should be saying that. Thank you to 24/7 for having us. We will round out shortly on the live stream, but stay tuned if you are watching on an after show. Go ahead, Neil. Thank you for the super chat.
No, I was just saying that's not why you tell people. Now that you explained it, it makes no sense of me saying this. But it's not to make you feel special. It's that you're trying to open the eyes of people that have been sitting in darkness their entire lives. And that's exactly what heliocentrism is. It's sitting in darkness.
That's great, Neil. But the problem is that represents 10% or less of the people that will be involved in an issue group like this. The majority of people who will be involved with Flat Earth are in it for the reasons we previously described. And we've all witnessed that with our own eyes.
What are they?
So I don't think I'm wrong
I agree.
in saying that.
I agree.
What reasons previously described? Can you describe what those reasons?
Like self-importance, feeling unique, feeling like you have special knowledge, feeling like you have something that you can lord over somebody else. All those types of things, which usually happens in all these types of groups.
Hey, you can obtain that that special knowledge behind the paywall on some channels.
Hey, let's not get snippy. What the point is that it gets you feeling like you're a very special snowflake amongst normies. That just that term itself, normies, distinguishes you as the very special snowflake, doesn't it? You mere normies don't know the nature of Earth. We, here on our pedestal of mocked and ridiculed flat earthers, do know, because we are special.
Hey, listen, it's not even globe Earth flat Earth. It's flat Earth, not flat Earth, right? Think about it that way. We've seen it in our own community that it's not special to be special. You have to be extra special, and then you have to treat the normal special people with your extra special disdain. Be like, aha, I'm even more special than you because I think it's not flat and you think it's flat.
I can go out of my way to show how not flat Earth is.
I don't want to say it now. My special knowledge is I'm going to keep it.
Ah. Feel feeling wronged that we're not special snowflakes. I'm going to call that show like Special Snowflakes. Or
That is a good name for it.
Very special snowflakes.
That was the case that I heard for flat Earth being a cult was that the idea that there was some secret knowledge that we had that, like to get into the group, you had to know, that was one of the claims that we were a cult was that we claimed we had special knowledge.
Isn't that our objection?
Yeah, that always puzzled me.
Well, isn't that our objection to the ether believers? They claim they have special knowledge.
Well,
yes.
The thing is, the ballers know it too. Everyone knows the Earth's flat. I mean, you can just look at their mass, any of their claims. Everybody knows it's flat. They just make arguments for why it's not.
Did you know it was flat when you were a baller?
I think I did. I really do think I did. It's hard to put myself back in that position now.
Yeah, but just because you're cognizant in the workings of your mind that you operate in the world as if it's flat doesn't mean that have that in your conscious mind. You know what I mean? Like you go out in the day and you say, I'm gonna accomplish this thing I need to accomplish, right? And you act out as if the Earth's flat, right? You don't go out and act out as if the Earth's a globe.
Right. Yeah, and that's my point. Yeah. Like, would you classify that as a different type of knowing?
It's like saying you don't know I say in the forefront of your mind, or you might rephrase that as deep down you know it's flat. It's like, yeah, but you might have to
subconsciously.
But it isn't. If you're fundamentally operating on a flat basis because you've got to get a job done, it's not like you apologizing for it not being a globe. You just get on with your day because it is done that way, but you don't give it any thought. You don't go, well, that means it's not a globe. Like my sister, when she learnt celestial navigation, at no point did she go, well, that means Earth's not a globe then. She just did not do that. It's only when I come along and go, well, therefore it's got to be a flat Earth then. And she's like, yeah, that's how it's done.
I think the problem is that we all fell for the Earth is so big that it appears flat, right? That's what they said right from the beginning of this debate. Locally flat.
It depends. It depends, but who's ever brought that to the forefront of their minds when they're acting out in the world? That's my point. It's like I never remember a single time in my life where I looked out on the Earth, perceived it as flat, recognized that it's flat, and then thought to myself, oh, it's only because the Earth's so big. That's never happened to me, not one time.
I've done that. I've
No,
done that.
I did.
I did that on an airplane. So in the back of my mind, I knew I wasn't high enough to see the ball. So I made apologetics, and when I looked out, I literally consciously said, wow, it looks really flat. Because it's a really big ball, and I know I'm not high enough to see the Earth curve, according to Neil deGrasse Tyson. That's what I told myself. I had to make apologies on the spot for why it wasn't globe-shaped.
I was going to say the same thing. I was on a plane, and that's when I came to the conclusion it's so big that I can't see curve.
Fair enough. So then you would agree that if I said that your human experience is that the Earth is flat, and the only time that you cognize the difference between a globe and flat is to excuse the fact that the globe isn't presenting itself.
Yes, that is a very accurate rendition.
Absolutely.
So then we do not have any hidden knowledge or any sacred knowledge. It's there for anyone.
Yeah, your personal experience is always going to be flat, and the only thing that's going to detract from that is your apologetics for why it isn't, because you've got a different belief when you start functionally doing anything.
Now, I would like to parse this out before anyone thinks that I'm making some weird statement that I never thought about it this way when I looked out into the world. Is that when I was young? All right, so I'm obviously a Christian. That's my worldview, and regardless of the universe, I would believe that God created it, right? And that there's an afterlife, let's say, to which maybe God will show you all the secrets of the universe. And one of the things I used to romanticize in my dream life and thought life was, after I die, being able to travel, light years to the right and see a quasar farchulon or whatever the heck they call them. And I could look at it and be like, oh, that's so cool. I used to think that was such a romantic idea, right? And then I realized eventually it's like a rock, a literal dead rock, 1,000,000 miles to my right. Who cares? Whoop-de frick.
Quasar Fargilon, though, bloody hell. That's worth seeing.
But that belief you had about the afterlife, or dreaming of going to see such things, is what a lot of people hold on to when you try to talk to them about this subject. They're emotionally tied to it.
Well, part of it too is that we kind of like have a precondition that the physical events that occur in the world are the things that are extraordinary. Like volcanoes, or let's use some of their fantasy, like quasars exploding and neutrino blasts coming out of black holes and zapping Uranus off its orbit. All these mystical, magical things that you think are so incredible. What I've come to learn, from my own personal view, is that none of that is amazing at all. Not even in the sense of, oh, look at the universe, it's so amazing, that means God is amazing. If God is the nature of the being of the type that he is, none of those things are extravagant. They're simple for him. It's easy peasy. What's more impressive to me is the nature of sentient entities, right? The most valuable thing, the most impressive thing, the most marvelous thing, is a child's joy at being able to draw a picture for the first time and be proud of it, right? That is amazing. A quasar 1,000,000 miles to my right that's been doing what it's allegedly been doing for 1,000,000 years, and it's going to do what it does without me caring or viewing it, like that's nothing. Humans, our souls, our spirits, our relationships to each other, that's something.
I couldn't
Well
agree
said.
more. And yeah, and also, like, haven't you ever, like, I remember as a kid wandering around looking in awe at the individuals, the different, like, how are we not like ants, you know? So, yeah, I completely agree. We are fascinating people. I just, like I said, it's amazing to me that.
Yeah. So I'll wrap this up in the sentiments of NASA. So NASA, right, and all these other dudes are trying to, find a new exoplanet where everyone can go, and then everything will be in abundance, right? And we can have all the food we want to eat, and we can have all the trees we want to bask in at this new planet. Meanwhile, all the money they're wasting on that, and they could just send it to sub-Saharan Africa and actually affect some real human beings in the present day.
Yeah. Yeah, $60 million a day for some CGI. It's pretty impressive.
Can we validate that $60 million a day? I always wondered about that. How do we know that that's what they're pulling in a day? Seems really high.
That was their budget in like 2020 or something that was released.
So they say.
Right. I mean, that's the current information that we have so far.
I've not heard any of the
Yeah.
subject matter experts on, economic expenditures or anything like that challenge it. So I will defer to the authorities on that. I don't know.
I remember Jaron saying a long time ago now, oh my God, this is probably when it was $50 million a day. There was more money than the TV industry, the music industry, movies, entertainment, but combined. It's like, what the? This is a lot of money.
You know what the funny thing is, AI? They're saying we have a food shortage, and they're saying that we're overpopulated. But man, you ever see how big Texas is? Some of the parts in Alabama I look at, wide open. So I don't think there's a problem. I think the powers that be make it a problem.
Well, I think the UK is pretty overpopulated now, unfortunately, and I think it would also fit in Texas about, I don't know, 5 times, I guess, 6 times, quite a few times. But I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah,
Boris
if they're going to put
Johnson's dad.
everybody in one area.
Yeah. Yeah. Boris Johnson's dad once famously said that there should be 15 to 25 million people in the UK. And it seems that they're working to try and get to that number just lately.
It's been said that they could fit the world in Texas. I don't know how true that is, but who knows? How does statistics go, Nathan?
64.7% are made up on the spot.
Yeah. I had a factoid once that the every person could be thrown into the Grand Canyon on Earth, end over end, you know.
Have you ever seen the Grand Canyon?
On TV?
Yeah, I actually went to Las Vegas, and I didn't go to the. I just stayed on the Strip, basically, mostly in the MGM. So yeah, sad.
You didn't get to see it, or you did?
No, I didn't go. No, I wish I'd gone to San Diego as well. By the way, yeah, I regret that.
When you stand next to it, you won't doubt how big it is.
Right.
You know.
So the factoid actually goes that every person could have a 20 by 20 personal room and still fit in the Grand Canyon. And
Yeah,
if,
well,
like,
that's
you
the size
divide
hole
the
asteroid
square
would
miles.
make.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we all get it. The moral of the story is that there's plenty of land. There's plenty of available farmable land. There's plenty of resources. It's just poor management, basically.
Yeah, but if you're the managers, you don't want to talk about that. It's obviously something else. You know, it's got to. There's too many people. It ain't got nothing to do with how we're running this. What are you talking about?
Well, that depends on how you look at it. If their goal is to achieve what's happening, then it's not poor management, is it?
Touche.
The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, right? And the needs of the organism outweigh the needs of the parts. So if somebody is in a allegedly benevolent position as a leader to chart the human race to its goal, whatever that goal is in their minds, then everything that they're doing in their view is moral, because their overarching goal is to maintain the human species to a particular end that they see as an ultimate good. So, the evil overlords, quote unquote, to them, they're doing God's work.
That's sick.
That's reasonable for him to say that, though. They may be sick looking at it from our perspective, but in their minds, they could be thinking they're doing God's work.
Oh, come on, John. You think it's necessary that they have us believing that we're on a ball because everybody would go bananas if they found out we're on a flat Earth, right? I've heard you say that before. Maybe not in that
I never
terminology.
said it like that. I never said it. I said that heliocentrism may be a self-containing philosophy that keeps the psychopathic leadership in check, but I've never said that they designed it for that reason.
I thought you said that people would go crazy. They would all start looking for this edge or dome or whatever you want to call it.
Oh, Neil, you subscribe to the Christian worldview, correct?
That's correct.
All right, so what entity is responsible for the mass delusion that overtakes the whole world?
Lucifer.
To a point, correct?
Yes, and
So
then
there's
it's our
another
own sin
entity.
that caused us to go away.
Fair enough. Fair enough. There's another entity that is specifically credited with a mass delusion intentionally. What entity is that?
Is it Xenu? I'm going to go with Xenu.
No. God, correct. So Satan is the deceiver up until a point, and then after that point, it's God who causes the people to believe the delusion and the lie. Because,
yes.
and this is the reason why. Yes. Now here's the reason given in the scripture. Because they, being the people who are now going to believe the delusion, received not the love of the truth. So throughout the deception and throughout the struggle between good and evil and truth and lies, they didn't love truth. They loved lies. And so God says, okay, screw you. You can believe the lie. And he causes them to believe the lie.
Yeah, he causes them to believe a delusion. He gives them up into a delusion.
One
Yeah,
sec.
right.
Can you mute when you're not talking now? Your
Yeah,
line's
in other
horrible.
words, oh, my bad.
I hope that doesn't kill the conversation. It's just when you're not talking, because it's fine when you are talking, but
Yeah, I
So the
keep
point I
going. You're
made
about
there is
to
that the human race demonstrates itself that it loves lies and deception so much so that God says, if you love it so much, you can have it.
Did everybody go quiet, or did my computer mess up again?
It's your computer, John. Just kidding.
Oh, you should have played along a bit more. I'm just going to give it another 5 seconds.
No, I like the AI's point there, though, you know, and if you go and say that heliocentrism is part of the Great Delusion, then is it even possible for us to make them understand?
No, because they believe the lie. So they're not going to understand. Many are called, few are chosen. Or should I say, many are the called.
Which would make us sort of like a remnant church in a way. Do you think there's 144,000 flat earthers?
Well, I don't think that's, I know you're not serious about that, but there's got to be more than that.
That's such a specific group of people that doesn't. Those are all virgins too. So I mean,
Correct.
You're screwed, I guess. But you have kids. You're screwed.
Now he's speaking about 12,000 from each tribe of Israel, correct?
Yeah. That's there's people that believe only 144,000 will be saved. There's a whole religious cult that believes that. But if you actually read the Bible, you'll quickly see that they're morons.
Yes, correct, because there's millions that are worshiping at the throne of every tongue and every tribe. At that time, when this is going on, yes, 12,000 from each tribe. But Israel has not cried out yet. They still think that their Savior is coming. They still don't recognize Jesus as Messiah.
But as far as understanding what we do about the nature of Earth here, and like the arguments that QE has put forward, and the general understanding of how Earth is measured and what that means, you think there's 144,000 people that know that?
There's way more than that.
Yeah, way more than that.
Way more.
Nathan, do you have 144,000 subscribers?
No, about 25,000.
I'm failing to see the comparison or what you're trying to put together.
I mean,
Being special?
the general premise is the Earth is oriented horizontal, and any reference measurement from the horizontal, in order to be relevant, the Earth has to be horizontal, right? Now, it does sound like circular reasoning, but to anyone who believes the Earth is flat, then that's self-evident, right? So if you say the Earth is oriented horizontal, or horizontal is in relation to the surface of the Earth, I mean, then you're basically believing the same thing. You may not have parsed out the particulars as far, but the amount of people that would agree with what I just said is in the millions and millions.
You assume.
But there's all kinds of things where people were asked, do they think the Earth is flat? Or like Brazil has tons of flat earthers. I mean, dude, just even based on if you just take in the history of niche topics, right? For how many public face there is versus private face, right? You could easily say 1% of the population, easily, and that would be in the tens of millions.
Right,
Think
but
about this, John. This has been going on for 10 years here, just in this, on Nathan's platform.
But there is a distinction between, and we've made it here, between people who believe that it's flat and because they know it's not a ball, or they've done the research. Do the research and you'll know too. You know, that's their reasoning for why. Do the research. That there's those people who wouldn't be, you know, they would not be included in that number. So,
Wait, are you saying there's not 144,000 like-minded like us? Is that what you're saying?
at this moment, I don't think so. No.
So why are we hunting for 144,000 of anything?
He wants to be raptured.
I compared this to the great delusion in the Bible, and just pointing out the correlations that you could draw, but just kind of having fun with words, really.
Nah, see that? It may be, this may be the one world religion, but it's not the great delusion.
Yeah, brother. Neil, it sounds like we're in the midst of a new cult being formed right here, right now. The secret 144,000, it's measured flat Earth.
The leader, John Shelton, also known as refracted curvature. Nathan, he's just a puppet.
There's no obligation to any of you 144,000.
Can you be a cult if you just state facts?
From what I'm hearing, if I point out that the grass is green because its color is green and you can see it's green, that's circular reasoning.
No, what I'm hearing is if we let these two go another 5 minutes, there'll definitely be an argument.
What's wrong with that, Neil? You want there to be arguments.
Yes. I like when you two go at it.
You wouldn't have said what you just said if you didn't want an argument. What are you talking about?
Yeah, that's it. Neil just wants to watch
See,
the
Neil,
world
you
burn,
proved my
doesn't he?
point. You got it. Even in the flat Earth, which somehow cures, all human ills and vices, Neil likes to watch the violence. That's part of his motivation for being present on the stage.
Can't we all just get along? No, that would be boring.
Not with you here, Neil. You're always picking a fight.
Yeah. No, I just know how it goes when you two are going back and forth, that somewhere along the line, it's going to go awry.
Hey, Brian joined. I just ran out of time to cover his video in the live show. And it deserves more credit than to just play it now.
You want to hold off until tomorrow to play it, or
I'm going to send him a message, ask him where he's at.
I was hinting at Brian hopefully being in the audience and joining and going through it. Because I watched it this morning, but you know when you watch something once, you're like, it seems too simple. If I try and go through it, I'll probably mess something up and Brian will tell me off.
Well, is it something that you want to promote and like get the viewing numbers up on and hold off for the live show tomorrow, or is it something that
I
just
do.
Really good?
I do. I want to cover it tomorrow. He's talking about measuring elevation angle measurements to Polaris. It's what we did cover in today's show, but he's also comparing how they. We were yesterday at the end of the show when we were discussing the nautical versus statute miles. He's broken that down into how they try and reposition that as a claimed globe proofsy, and he just describes it, but ultimately with a focus on how Polaris is used off a flat plane for these systems to exist in the first place. I just thought it was a really good video.
I see you talked it up too much now. Now everybody wants to watch it.
Good. Hopefully they'll watch it before we cover it tomorrow.
But then there won't be no reason to cover it tomorrow. So you just
Hopefully
kill
Brian
it.
will join and talk about it. That's the idea.
Did Brian come by yesterday? I
Yeah, I
don't
think he
think he was
joined.
here yesterday.
He joined in the tail end of that conversation. That's probably why I ended up making a video about it. But rather than just play his video, it'd be ideal if Brian just joined during a live show and we just discussed it. Because it's interesting. Not to mention the fact it's flat earth proof. I'll have to see if we can actually, I'll be a bit less lazy and see if I can dig out a video that we can actually respond to tomorrow.
Well, where are we right now? Are we still in 24/7?
Yeah, we are, yeah.
Is there anybody in there? Don't ballers usually go to 24/7?
Amish secrets in there.
Hey, how about I go get a heliocentric paradox video and we just put a laugh track to every time they state the paradox?
You ever watch Seinfeld without the laugh tracks?
I want to cover that 1980s video game. Can you dig that out, John?
Yeah.
That'd be good to cover, because I remember covering it, but I don't remember. I keep asking you about terms from it. I think it'd be a better idea to just watch it again. Asymptotically flat's the only one I can remember. I've probably said that wrong as well. Asymptotically or asymptotically? In either event, flat.
Yep. Yeah. Sorry. I was going through my search bar to try to find it. I think it's spelled AS. Oh God, I got to spell it. I'm screwed. It's got a P in there and the tautically and
Whole bunch of other
oh
letters.
man,
Letters and stuff.
yeah.
Asymptotically.
Got P in there.
Because you got to
though.
be an ass.
Asymptotically. Maybe. Either way, flat. Like it was described by Cox to Rogan. Right, see how long this dead air lasts. Maybe it's time to round out.
I thought John was looking for the video.
Yeah, we'll cover it tomorrow.
Hey. Oh.
Oh, Brian is tomorrow. What's going on? Now you're confusing me.
I'm just getting a pipeline of stuff that we can cover. I'm hoping Brian will come, and in the first half of tomorrow's live show, if he's around, he'll go through what he covered in his video with us, discussing it with him, rather than just playing his video. Yeah? That's a second-rate substitute for Brian actually being here, isn't it?
Yes, and another thing I want to ask, not to change the subject, what happened to the tinfoil hat man and that presentation he was supposed to bring to us about the cults?
Good question. I dropped him a line today on Skype, just saying hi. You know, I didn't ask him anything or anything of that nature, but I just dropped him a line because I hadn't heard from him. A bit like Mitchell. What I did was I was in my kid's class. She's in an art class on a Tuesday. And I just sat with my phone going through Skype, going, who haven't I spoken to for a while? And as I'd find someone, I go, oh, I haven't spoken to you in ages. And I'd just fire them across a quick hi. You know, a little waving emoji.
I was really looking forward to that.
I'll let you know if he drops me a line back. But he dropped off the radar. He came for a curry in Leamington with me and Craig. And then he just vanished. I never heard from him since.
Hey, that's in Master B if you want to look at it a little bit of it right quick. I think it started at the 11-minute mark when they started covering the elements of orbital mechanics. I scrubbed through it to get to that point, but you know, the first 10 minutes, I can't really say what's in there.
Original coordinate system must be defined. The coordinate system commonly used is the geocentric equatorial coordinate system, which has its origin at the Earth's center. This coordinate system is a non-rotating reference system in which a satellite's orbital plane tends to remain fixed relative to the stars while the Earth turns beneath it. The XY plane is the Earth's equatorial plane. The positive x-axis points to the vernal equinox. This is the point where the sun appears to cross the Earth's equator on its way north on the first day of spring each year.
Okay, so we're starting at a point we're all familiar with, right? The equatorial plane.
The z-axis is along the Earth's spin axis toward the North Pole. Nodes.
Notice how this is all measured on the plane. The sphere is redundant. You've got zenith from the center of the ball. Yeah, you can't measure this, but they're describing it with respect to a sphere. I mean, it's all familiar territory.
There are points in a satellite's orbit which intersect the Earth's equatorial plane. The ascending node is the point at which the spacecraft crosses the equator, going from south to north.
So in a styles motion, that would just be the point that they reach the equator, the horizon. Therefore, you can't measure it anymore. They're describing that as a spaceship flying around in an orbital motion on a plane that crosses through a sphere that's dissecting the plane, with you measuring this motion from the center of it, exactly as depicted.
The descending node is where the spacecraft crosses the equator going from north to south. The line joining the two nodes is called the line of nodes. The orientation of an orbit is determined by three orbital element angles. The right
from the center of Earth, so an angle that's not possible on a globe.
Ascension of the ascending node is the angle between the x-axis and the ascending node.
On a globe.
It is always measured eastward from the direction away from the vernal equinox
on a flat plane.
The Earth's equatorial plane.
Yep, there you go.
The argument of perigee is the angle between the ascending node and the point of perigee.
Measured on a flat plane. That's 2.
It is measured in the orbital plane in the direction of spacecraft motion.
But the orbital plane is an angle taken with respect to equatorial plane. I'm trying to wrap my head around the orientation in the diagram. In fact, all of them are with respect to the equatorial plane, aren't they? So far, yeah, they are.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, it depends. They're applied at the equatorial plane, but when they're initially measured, it's just with respect to the plane of reference, which they'll assert that the plane of reference is so many degrees out of alignment with the equatorial plane to correlate it back to the equatorial plane. A lot of flat planes in there.
Well, all of them so far are measured from the center of this claimed to be ball that was dropped in about 2/3 of the way through the description. But the description itself all has the angles with the sphere Earth itself redundant. Other than it could be drawn as a protractor, but it's not the surface. It's not where the angle's coming from. It's not a measurement of angles with anything to do with the globe surface. It's all off a flat plane.
Inclination is the angle between the equatorial plane and the orbital plane. A satellite which has an eastward velocity component at the ascending node has an orbital inclination lying between 0 and 90 degrees.
Of a flat plane.
Such an orbit is called a prograde orbit.
The prograde orbit is described with respect to its motion, detailed off a flat plane. All of them are.
Yep.
A satellite which moves due north at the ascending node is in a polar orbit. Polar orbits have an orbital inclination of exactly 90 degrees.
With respect to a flat plane? Yeah. All of this is described with respect to this initial equatorial plane. All of the angles are described at a point at the center of the equatorial plane, and these further planes, in this case an orbital plane, 90 degrees with respect to the equatorial plane, all converge at this center point, which is not on the surface of a ball. The only thing that the inferred surface of Earth is being depicted as useful for is if it was a protractor. That's it. And you would rotate the orientation of the protractor through the equatorial plane axis. But other than describing it as a protractor, there's no use. It's redundant. It's entirely redundant because all of the motions that are being described are actually pretty close to the top edge of the ball that's being used to measure the angle from the center of it. So obviously it's not the surface of the ball, that is. It is still the surface. That's how the measurements are taken. It's just in the center of the plane, not on the surface of the ball.
Isn't a protractor flat in the bottom?
Yeah, but it would be sat, if it was a protractor that you were describing the globe Earth as, it would be sat with a flat bottom edge against the equatorial plane. That's the point. You're twisting the orientation of a protractor on a flat plane to describe all of these other planes. In this case, on screen now, orbital plane. So that's just the movement of the angles through the protractor that the globe Earth would be. That's all it is, on a flat plane.
Well, how are they not seeing this?
Because they just have to say globe Earth and then describe it in the center of it with a vague, transparent picture of a globe, and that's all you need, right?
A satellite with a westward...
Again.
Do like that one guy who was trying to describe celestial navigation on a sphere, and every time you use a flat Earth, you hold up a sphere. That's all you got to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Velocity component at the ascending node is in a retrograde orbit and has an orbital inclination between 90 and 180 degrees.
Off a flat plane. So the orbital plane described is an orientation where you've taken the protractor and tilted it, but its flat edge still sits on the equatorial plane. And the angle being described is from the center of an inferred ball Earth that's redundant, other than to be a protractor. Because if this is your point of measurement and the description of all orbital motion, no one's ever going to measure it from the center of hell. And all of it comes from the center of hell. That's how all orbital motion is described. I remember being this astonished the first time we played it, John.
The 5 orbital elements explained thus far describe the size, shape, and orientation of the orbit in space.
Only if you've got a flat plane to describe it with. Now they've got it shown as floating around a ball. So now it's floating around the protractor the measurements came from. And that protractor is claimed to be the surface of a ball Earth that you're standing on. No. All of these descriptions would be taking place from the center of this ball, with an equatorial plane being described, where you change the orientation of that ball to give you a second plane that you can describe the angles that you're going to imply are motions around a ball. They're not. You're just taking angular measurements from the center of the plane that you described in the first instance. The equatorial plane. That's a flat Earth.
The final element is a time value used to locate the satellite in its orbit.
Where's that going to come from? That's going to come from the motion of the sun with respect to its angles taken off a flat plane. Also known as the longitude system.
A satellite moves in a very predictable manner. It stays on schedule. Thus, if the time at which a satellite passes a particular point is known, the time when it will pass any other point can be...
And this is why you've got the whole budget exceeding games and music and cinema to give you this on screen now. This is all that budget went to. So that it looks like you've got a washing machine floating around in a sky vacuum, being filmed from behind in the sky vacuum itself with Earth as the backdrop. That's what all the money went on. This.
Determined. The particular point chosen is perigee, and the time of perigee passage is the last of the 6 orbital elements.
Well, therefore, perigee is directly related to the angles taken with respect to the moved or transitioned protractor claimed to be globe Earth with respect to the equatorial plane. This also requires a flat. That's 4 so far. Am I missing one? I think that's 4.
There's 7 in total, and they're all with respect to a flat plane.
Yeah.
Orbital elements depict a spacecraft's orbit in non-rotating coordinates. To visualize an orbit relative to the rotating Earth, a projection traces the spacecraft's position on the Earth's surface. The projected path is called
on a transverse Mercator flat projection. So we've got a flat map describing what would be angular motions with respect to the equatorial plane as a curved path on a square map. It's not on a globe surface.
Called the ground track. As a satellite orbits the Earth, the ground track shifts westward. There are 2 causes for this. First, the primary contributor is the Earth's rotation toward the east under the orbital plane.
The Earth's rotation under the orbital plane, which is described with respect to the equatorial plane. Therefore, Earth's axis and rotation in this description have a prerequisite of a flat Earth measurement. It's 5, right? The axis itself, that's 5. John?
Yes. Yeah. The axis will always be described with respect to a flat plane.
Second, because the Earth is not a uniform sphere and bulges at the equator, its gravity is greatest at the equator. This causes the orbital plane to rotate slowly.
How can a description of an orbital force be in any way influential for an angular relationship taken from a flat plane? They just drop this garbage into the description and it has no basis in reality. What was just stated had absolutely nothing backing it. It was a purely baseless assertion, wasn't it? There was no angle describing measurements. There was nothing. Just the baseless assertion itself as a causal description. Outrageous.
Slowly around the Earth's polar axis. In
what the axis that's prerequisite description of a flat plane, the measurement they're in, came from the equatorial plane to have that description. But you're now going to ascribe causal influences of gravity for a measurement that took place on a flat plane to make the description in the first instance for you to reify this ball. You didn't even take the clumsy step of reifying. You just shoved it up on screen. Of course, you are NASA.
In a motion called precession. Precession is toward the west for prograde orbits and toward the east for retrograde orbits.
So the orbital motion, retrograde or otherwise, is a different inference of the tilt of the axis that the globe Earth would be if it was a protractor. Therefore, this is the 6th or 7th prerequisite flat Earth for the description. I think it's 6th.
I think it is 6th.
For low Earth orbits, such as those of the Space Shuttle at 150 miles altitude,
Thunderbirds are go! This is where all the money went, on this garbage. This very obviously fake-looking, from the 1980s garbage that would have seen cutting edge when it was presented to the 1980s audience and now hasn't dated well. Very much a Thunderbirds image.
The westward
but he did
shift.
Say altitude.
He did. That's 7. The altitude description has to be with respect to sea level. That's 7. Good catch.
Of the ground track, due to the Earth's rotation, is about 22.5 degrees, while the shift due to precession is only about a half degree.
We'll cover both of those already.
The inclination of a satellite orbit determines the north and south latitude limits of its ground track.
We've covered all of those so far. It's just reiterating it with the demonstration now.
Minimum orbital inclination is equal to the latitude of the launch site and is achieved by launching due east.
Again, even though it's from the 1980s, this is very clearly real. Regardless of what you might suppose happens to the rocket, the imagery is clearly crappy 80s 8mm footage, isn't it? Unlike the garbage they showed you Thunderbirds Are Go with the shuttle in claimed to be orbit in a sky vacuum.
For example, if a satellite is launched due east out of the Kennedy Space Center, which is located at 28.5 degrees north latitude, its
flat Earth requirement to give it that position.
Orbital inclination will be 28.5 degrees.
Description of a flat plane with respect to the equatorial flat Earth measurement that you took in the first instance.
And the limits of its ground track will vary between 28.5 degrees north latitude and 28.5 degrees south latitude.
Everything he says, every second word is a flat Earth proof.
If launch azimuth or direction of flight at launch, measured eastward from due north, is increased from due east, the orbital inclination angle increases as well as the maximum latitude of the north-south ground track. Therefore, the latitude limits of the ground track equal the new launch inclination.
Only possible with respect to a flat plane.
Similarly, if launch azimuth is decreased from due east, orbital inclination once again increases as well as the latitude limits of the ground track.
So the way you calculate the increases with respect to a flat plane and a latitude system that's also with respect to a flat plane. So all of these calculations take place with respect to a flat plane. No wonder they lost all the trajectory information for the moon landing. That never happened. Every single second equation would show our flat Earth's being measured. Like it is in this video, how they're describing how it's all done.
The maximum practical inclination from a Kennedy Space Center launch is
the inclination angle is going to be with respect to a flat plane, though, isn't it?
57 degrees.
Only on a flat plane.
This limit is imposed for safety considerations in order to keep the spacecraft and its booster system from flying over land masses during the ascent phase. To obtain an orbit with an inclination greater than 57 degrees,
you'll need a flat plane to infer it and then have to send the rocket into a reified sky vacuum with an orbital motion around a sphere that doesn't exist because the inference and reification came from measurements of a flat plane.
The spacecraft is launched from Vandenberg Air Force Base in California. Vandenberg offers the opportunity for southerly launches with orbit inclinations between approximately 70 degrees prograde through 138 degrees retrograde.
All flat Earth prerequisites. All of these descriptions need a flat Earth to describe them. It's unreal.
A significant advantage of launching from Vandenberg is the capability to economically achieve polar orbits with ground tracks covering all latitudes, from the North Pole to the South Pole.
So the advantage is that you can take it into a reified sky vacuum that has the orbital motions that were derived from measurements of a flat Earth. And you can take account of those and the changes therein. It seems like a crazy notion to say that you can take the world of reality and measurements of a flat plane into a cartoon world that doesn't exist with the measurements. This is utterly absurd.
The Earth is constantly turning, and all points on its surface have an eastward velocity, with the greatest velocity occurring at the equator.
The equator is a description of a flat Earth measurement, though. How can it have a greater velocity when the angular relationships are taken with respect to a non-rotating flat plane? Also disclaimed by NASA.
The farther the launch site is from the equator, or as launch azimuth is increased or decreased from due.
So in terms of the measurements of a flat plane and the circle of equal elevation that you would call the equator, all flat Earth.
East, less of the Earth's rotational velocity will
rotational velocity derived from axes that are taken from flat Earth prerequisites also. All of these things can't be reified into actual existence when you're taking the measurements from a flat Earth. That precludes you having a sphere to be turning. And the mathematical derivation is from a flat Earth.
Has he talked about eccentricity? I walked away. Has he talked about eccentricity yet?
Not yet.
And how gravity is with respect to a horizontal plane of reference?
Not yet.
Be imparted to the launch vehicle. This requires more fuel to get into orbit, or payload weight will have to be decreased. Launches due east from a position on or near the equator, such as
That's a circle of equal elevation measured on a flat plane.
Is the Kourou launch site in French Guiana, used by the European Space Agency, acquire the advantage of a free velocity gain of about 1,500 feet per second. This compares to the approximate 1,300 feet per second gain available at the further north latitude of the Kennedy Space Center. Launching from an equatorial site offers a significant advantage in payload weight capability and minimizes the amount of fuel needed to achieve an equatorial orbit.
What, a reification of a description of a measurement of a flat plane? No such beast is achievable.
Also,
Since
weight
many-
is a downward.
Yeah, go ahead.
Weight is a downward vector with respect to a horizontal plane of reference. So, yeah, but only possible on a flat plane.
Satellites operate in equatorial orbits. These are important considerations. Spacecraft are launched within a specified time interval called the launch window. Some of the factors affecting the launch window are launch and orbit lighting conditions, sun angles.
You'll need a flat Earth for those. Hello, Brian.
Nathan, hey everyone.
Hopefully you can join tomorrow during the live show and go through your most recent video, which I watched this morning. Very good.
Yeah, you've been getting a lot of props for it.
Which one is that, Nathan?
Maybe you didn't make it this morning. The one about statute, miles, elevation angles. Is that an older video?
It's not my newest, but it's only a couple of months old. I think it's only 2 or 3 months. Yeah, because that is where they get nautical miles. Because you can't have you need a land measurement to measure a nautical mile, and that's how they did it. I remember Tent Man going through it probably about 2 years ago now, showing some details, some documents about it. They needed to know what the 1 degree of angular change was in statute miles. Statute miles are horizontals, proving that nautical miles are also horizontals. No, the borders don't like it. Thanks.
There's absolutely nothing to come back with against that. You know, your latitude lines are on the ground. Yes, they're not real, but in terms of what you're plotting out and where you're traveling to and how you're finding a position, that very much is real.
Yeah, they're coordinates. Latitude and longitude are Earth-based surface of Earth coordinates.
Exactly.
There's no way around that. Yeah. So
there's no way around that when you're trying to anti-flat Earth your way around refracted horizons and such like. Then you excuse me. Then you're completely screwed.
Yeah, I noticed a change though. Remember when they used to claim that latitude and longitude was on the ground?
They can't anymore. Yeah, they've refracted their own horizon.
I've even had a Prototad, who is a navigator. I've even had him trying to claim that he gets his latitude from a refracted horizon.
Not if it represents positions on the ground, he doesn't.
No, he's admitted he doesn't reference the surface of his globe, and there's no special corrections in the almanac for a globe when they're referencing Polaris. It got as ridiculous as he tried to present this machine, this latitude machine that was built sometime in the 1900s for determining latitude with stars close to Polaris. So I can't remember the full details of it. It's like, what has any of that got to do with you being in a boat out at sea? Do you know what I mean? You're not going to have this latitude machine that has a plumb bob and all this with you. You need to get your latitude, but he's just basically trying to move latitude away from Polaris. That's what he was trying to do.
But if you're using a plumb bob on this latitude machine, the plumb bob's still ain't giving you a vertical with respect to a horizontal plane of reference that has to be level. that
Yeah.
they're done. The latitude machine proves a flat Earth, no globe required.
Yeah, it was like, the only reason he was even sharing that with me was because he was trying to move latitude away from Polaris. It's like if you're on a boat north of the equator and, you know what I mean, you're seeing Polaris and the sea horizon, that's what you get your latitude. The angle between the visible sea horizon that's out in front of your boat and Polaris, that's what gives you your latitude. There is no anything else. There's no refraction of a horizon that can be added to that. Because if you're getting your correct latitude from that, then you know what I mean. That's the surface of Earth you're looking at when you're referencing the horizon. You're not referencing some refraction because you don't get your latitude off of refraction. Nonsense.
We were just going through the NASA using a flat plane over and over and over and over and over again to keep people living on a ball. That video.
Is that the one where they do everything at equinox so there's no tilt and they extend their equatorial plane in all directions out into the celestial plane, giving themselves a monstrous flat plane of reference?
Yes, that's the asymptotically flat universe. We haven't got to that yet, but yes.
No one proves a flat Earth like NASA.
Exactly. I think
they're really good at it.
We should continue it in tomorrow's live show. What do you reckon? Too good to waste on this after show.
I wouldn't call it a waste.
Well, you know what I mean. I'd just rather do it for the live audience. We've covered up to, I'll just make a note of the time that we've got up to, so we're not repeating what we've done already. We've got up to 19 minutes 43. We'll make it 20.
Hold on a second. Wait. You're forgetting something, Nathan.
What?
That's very important. When I was just a listener, I couldn't wait for the Uncut and After show because I knew it was going to have stuff in there that I didn't hear.
Fine. We'll get 15 more seconds.
Payload orbit requirements. Rendezvous phasing if a rendezvous is planned. Tracking and communication requirements. And collision avoidance with other orbiting objects, to name a few.
You know it's real because it looks so fake.
I would like to take this video and like apply the laugh track that they have on Seinfeld to every time he uses a flat plane. But if I did that, I don't think you would ever hear him speak.
He's doing it every second word. In that last 10 minutes, he covered. He had 6 or 7 flat Earth proofs plus height with respect to a flat plane for weight. Nuts. Right, we'll pick this up again tomorrow. With that, I'm going to say another huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. And, of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams. Hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!